Number of residents in rural parts of Donegal is already having a knock-on effect, with schools experiencing a drop in the number of pupils. He says the lack of delivery of the SI housing is severely impacting rural areas. Councillor McDermott says there needs to be a shift in the mindset of the council.
We've been pushing this now for a number of years, and we're still in a situation where SA houses, and particularly here in Inishowen, there's been none built. To council, we're taking this seriously. There would be houses built, because there are families that are prepared to give land to the local authority to build SA houses for family members. We can give out about the department, we can give out about everybody else, but I think our own council, first of all, has to get their act together and make this happen, and then push it down the line to the department and get the department to grant the funding for these houses.
Letterkenny Milford Municipal District has been told it's not possible to secure an active travel funding to bring a footpath from Woodland School to the town boundary. It was raised by Councillor Jimmy Kavanagh, who said the path is a necessary one, both as a safety measure and as a community resource. Members were told the active travel funding is only available within the urban speed limit area. It will suggest that the path be done through active travel out to the boundary and do the rest from the council's own resources. Officials said that's not feasible, but they will continue to try to source external funds. And now to weather. A yellow wind warning is in operation for Donegal, Cavan and Monaghan from 8 a.m. today until 8 p.m. this evening. A mix of sunny spells and showers, and light to moderate southerly or variable winds at first today. The winds will veer northwest into western parts of Ulster this morning, and a spell of wet and increasingly windy weather will sweep eastwards over the province later. It'll be rather cool today, with highs of just 6 to 8 degrees. That's all for now. We'll be back again at 10 o'clock with the news and obituary notices. Until then, good morning.
My perfect escape would be...
a city break, somewhere with loads to do.
nothing. Just relax and go.
Out? Dinner and drinks in the hotel before heading?
To bed. Nice and early for an amazing night's sleep.
At Maldron Hotels, we provide you with everything you need to escape your way across Ireland and the UK. Save on every room, every night when you book direct with Click on Maldron at maldronhotels.com.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
And a very good morning to you. This is the 9 till noon show. It's Donal Kavanagh with you until 12 noon today. A lot to happen on the show this morning, lots lined up for you. But as we always say, the centrepiece of this show is your views and your contributions. You can text us on 086 60 25,000. You can use that number for WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us on 074 91 25,000, 0035374 91 25,000 if you're outside of the dialing area. We're on social media, of course, at Highland Radio on Twitter, Highland Hub on Facebook, and don't forget, you can watch the show unfold on Facebook as well. Our Zoom guests will be there for you to see in Technicolor, and you can follow the show there also on our YouTube channel. That's Highland Radio Ireland on YouTube. And you can also follow us, of course, live on our website, highlandradio.com. And don't forget, over the course of the day on highlandradio.com, all the news stories will be placed on the website too as they happen. So that'll be updated on a regular basis by Donna Marie and later by Michaela over the course of the day. So always do keep an eye on the website. There is always new material appearing there as well as across our other social media channels. Let's start on this Wednesday morning. It's going to be a windy one, we're told. Not quite yet, but it's coming, I'm sure. It was quite breezy out there last night, actually. The front of the Donegal Post this morning: industrial road confusion causing congestion. While Bundoran, Rosnalla and Donegal Town feature regularly on the tourist trails at the start of the Easter period, traffic through Killybegs was backlogged over the holiday weekend. Councillor Niamh Kennedy believes this is because there is a modern road which passes much of the congestion flashpoint, but because it's called the industrial road, it is confusing people, and people aren't using it when perhaps it might be the better option to use. We might do a bit more on that later on in the programme. We'll be speaking about road conditions in the Letterkenny and West Donegal area as well, and around about the Cloughaneely area too, because a lot of traffic and a lot of tailbacks over the past 2 days in Donegal. Great to see it. Great to see the tourist traffic and great to see the business coming in. But those tailbacks. We will be discussing those a little bit later on the programme. Inish Times this morning, dozens of objections to Glenealy quarry plans. Declan McGee writes that objections have been lodged by locals against plans to develop a quarry and concrete batching plant near Glenealy. The proposed development is to supply local builders, farms and the community with local stone and concrete. It would see 20 journeys a day by heavy commercial vehicles. And more on that in the Inish Times. Also, inside there's a story on Micah Action Group Anger at Spending, and all the other news from Inishowen available there as well. Finn Valley Voice this morning. Father Kevin needs funds for African projects. A Stranraer-born missionary priest has appealed for funds to help him in his ongoing projects in Africa. Father Kevin O'Hara has worked in Nigeria for over 40 years, where he's a staunch defender and promoter of human rights. And in fact, I was saying to Caroline, unless I'm very much mistaken, on my very first day of work on Highland Radio in September 1990, the very first person I interviewed that day on an old reel-to-reel tape recorder hooked up to a telephone was the self-same Father Kevin O'Hara. My very first interview, unless I'm very much mistaken, was with Father Kevin. So it's great to see he's still going strong and seeking people's help. Moving on to the Nationals this morning, Irish Independent, Biden touches down with pledge of cash to end Brexit standoff. The US President challenges the DUP to get back to work after Stormont deadlock. President Biden will promise fresh economic supports for Northern Ireland today on condition that there is a restoration of power sharing at Stormont. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is expected to respond by offering to host an international economic conference on Northern Ireland in September. The government here is also set to make a financial contribution, as will the British and the EU governments, but all this will be contingent on there being an adoption of the Windsor Framework and the establishment of an executive with Michelle O'Neill of Sinn Féin as First Minister. Also, days of mourning lie ahead for Galway crash teens. The first funeral for two teenagers killed in a horror road crash in Galway will be held on Friday. The shattered communities of Annadown and Headford will come to a standstill this week and pay their respects as 14-year-old Kirsty Bowen is laid to rest. Her fellow pupil Lucas Joyce from Annadown, who also died, will be buried afterwards. Now, the Irish Times this morning, Biden to stress benefits of Belfast agreement in keynote address. A US president to begin 4-day Irish visit with speech in Belfast. He's not expected to twist arms over Stormont restarting, but he will hail the tremendous progress made since the Belfast agreement was signed and emphasise Washington's readiness to preserve those gains and boost Northern Ireland's economy. Interesting, two slightly different interpretations of the same indications coming from the Biden camp. The Times saying, oh, it'll be very low-key, he'll not be twisting arms. The Independent phrasing it as, well, you know, you won't get the money if you don't actually get Stormont back up and running. So it's interesting the way the same mood music can be interpreted in different ways. Also on the Irish Times this morning, fatal crash survivors to be interviewed. Mobile phones found at Headford scene may offer insight into how car struck tree. Gardaí investigating the County Galway road crash that claimed the lives of Lucas Joyce and Kirsty Bowen are hopeful interviews with the two survivors. Also, young teenagers will help them piece together how the crash occurred. Now, the Irish Daily Mail this morning is its main headline: fears that online dare led to crash that killed teenagers. Gardaí examine possible link to social media. Ian Begley and Garth McNamee write that a Garda investigation into the deaths will examine if a social media challenge played a role in the tragedy. And you can only hope that it didn't, because you hear stories over the years about various social media challenges which have not ended well, and we can only hope that that was not the situation in this instance. Front of the Irish Daily Star this morning, main headline: Joe Brolly. And no, it's not the ex-Derry footballer and GAA pundit. It's a rain-soaked reception for Biden as Air Force One lands. We see Joe Biden getting off Air Force One and a brolly being held aloft to protect him. Also, tributes to tragic crash teens. Front of the Irish Daily Mirror this morning, a similar photograph of Air Force One on the tarmac at Belfast International Airport. Here we go is the headline. Joe Biden was all smiles as he touched down in Belfast last night to begin his 4-day visit to Northern Ireland. The US President grinned as he left Air Force One and met with the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on the tarmac before entering the beast. which is the nickname given to the limousine in which he is travelling. And the front of the Irish Sun this morning, taken away too young. These are the teens who died in a crash on Easter Monday. Pictures of Lucas Joyce and Kirsty Bohan, both of whom were killed when the car in which they were travelling with two friends hit a tree outside Headford in Galway. Minister Jack Chambers said it was a tragedy to have young people's lives lost. It has, he said, shocked the nation. Also on the front of the Irish Sun, steak knife dies in UK. The British Army's top IRA mole has died, aged 76. Freddie Scapatici, aka Steak Knife, was buried near his home in England. He had been linked to dozens of murders, the story says, and that's on the inside of the Sun this morning. So that's the way the papers are looking here on the 9 till noon show on this Wednesday morning. It is Wednesday the 12th of April. A lot to happen over the course of the programme this morning, as we said. And again, as we have said, if you want to have your say and get your comments on air, you can text us 086 60 25,000. Use your WhatsApp app for that if that's your choice, or you can call us 074 91 25,000 or 0035374 91 25,000. Niamh and Caroline taking your calls, Caroline producing as well. Let's take a break. Back after these.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountaintop Letterkenny, the 2022 C-Store National Off-Licence of the Year.
At Screwfix, we've got low prices to make you go wow. So you can stock up on everything you need to get the job done. That's low prices on trade essentials, low prices on plumbing and electrical, and low prices on decorating and workwear. Don't miss out. Shop these wow prices at screwfix.ie or in over 30 stores. Screwfix, the choice of champions.
Enjoy the Cup of Tea Festival Ardra from Friday the 28th of April to Monday the 1st of May. Come along to the biggest little festival in Ireland as we honour the great Donna Harkin. Schools of music are a must for any aspiring musician. That's the Cup of Tea Festival Ardra, May Bank Holiday Weekend. Lots of accommodation available. See ardra.ie.
At Cooney's Home Interiors, we pride ourselves on offering you the very best in choice, quality and value on all home furnishings. Treat your home with a visit to Cooney's today and choose from our large range of suites, tables, beds, not to mention our large selection of home accessories. Our motto is, if you see it, you can buy it, and we will deliver it to your door. Cooney's Home Interiors, Letterkenny Retail Park. Style and perfection at incredible value.
Shop Evolved Clothing for Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Paul and Shark, and many more casual and streetwear brands. Menswear Superstore, Letterkenny Retail Park, or online at evolvedclothing.com. Easter sale now on.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
It's 9:15 on this Wednesday morning. Don't forget, as I said, you can watch the show unfold on Facebook or our YouTube channel, and a number of people are already doing that. And good morning to Michael, to Annie, to Audrey and to Paul, all of whom are tuned in on Facebook this morning. Now, sometimes when we listen to the Community Garda slot and we hear of incidents of criminal damage where a stone was thrown at a house or something was done, and sometimes we can maybe think, oh, it's not all that serious. But for the person who's in the house, it can be a very serious issue indeed, and it can be a very worrying issue. Let's go to line one and talk to Mary. Mary, good morning. Hello, Mary.
Hello there. Hello, good morning. What it is, I heard it been mentioned yesterday. I live in Buncrana, and I heard that McGinn Avenue, there was young people banging on doors, and I don't mean banging, trying to kick in doors. So one of them, of course, the guard had to go out and warn this person. I'm not mentioning any names or who the... So that was... I don't know what happened there, but it did happen. I want people to believe that it did happen. And then I live in a wee place, lovely wee place called Millfield. And I lived in my home for about 20 years, never had any bother. And I've had kids here years ago, and we had fun. They grew up with me. And all of a sudden, there's that one of them certain boys that was banging on them doors in Millfield is up here. Now, what I had to suffer for 2.5 months, somebody on my window, somebody banging at somebody at my back, my bedroom window, and I don't know. And then it went on for a solid 2.5 months. And I spoke to the one parent. No, it wasn't his son. It hasn't nothing got to do with this here. And it has to be stopped. It's antisocial behaviour.
Yeah.
Now, my advice to people who it happened to, please report it to the guards. You're not too late. Report it to the guards, even if you want to go to the guard station. Give them your name and whatever, and let them. They will deal with it. They will. But the thing that happened to me, I needed proof. Now, these boys or girls.
And I know you had thought about maybe putting a camera in, Mary, but that's going to be very, very expensive, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. It's the wee hoods and the wee mini gangsters. I hate to say that, but that's at the moment that's what we've got. Now, it's like a takeover. It's like blackmail, bullying, and it's been led away. But now I hear, I was told this, and for definite, the same young man was down the back. He battered at people's doors. He battered at the glass to get in to search the people's house.
And you do believe that this is people trying to break into the house. This isn't teenagers having what they would regard as fun. You believe this is
the
sinister.
Guards, to be honest, have been brilliant. Now, they've come up here, Vanguard, that we thought they were going to be able to move in at one stage. And they were coming up, doing their work, doing their best. And these boyos were hiding, but not on behind bushes. They were running to houses that they knew, and they thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Now, if this can be stopped before it goes any further. Now, I know with me, it happened for 2.5 months. And this is what, now, if it hadn't met me to put in cameras, which I've never had to do.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening. Now, can you imagine a teacher in the school trying to teach these young men, or I wouldn't call them young men, and that teacher has to put up with it? It has to stop.
Yeah. In terms, you're on your own in the house. Is there any way you can maybe?
Yes, I am for definite.
Are there any?
I'm a pensioner. I'm a pensioner.
Yeah. Are there any friends or relatives that you could maybe even for one night bring to the house with you? Because I know you're not talking about staying up all night.
To do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a few people, friends, good friends, and they came up and done. And what I was doing, they told me. I phoned the Garda, and they came up, and there's still. But the young man's face was caught this time. I think he'd done 4 or 5 houses.
Yeah.
He just battered at the ground, and it wasn't mine. I wouldn't let him in my house.
Yeah, of course.
I'd seen his face, and he thought I was going to open the door and let him in that frame of mind.
Yeah. Well, all I can say, Mary, is, we obviously hope that the Gardaí will be able to take action on this and that this will stop, because, you deserve peace in your own home, you deserve rest in your own home, and you deserve more than anything else, you deserve a good night's sleep.
And you know what? It's very scary.
Yeah.
First time it happened to me, I got up and I stayed up all night. It happened another night and I sat trying to catch the person. And, they come with these hoodies over them.
Yeah.
And now what they're doing, they're wearing the Covenant mask. They're using it for another reason.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done anything. I don't even mix with this young fella or anything like that there. So I don't know what's going on. It's about time, like, with the guards, and we can go to our rep and, and do this. but you can't. They're like we mini gangsters, and I know this goes on in Dublin, but if we can stop it in Buncrana before it gets any worse, we can do it.
Well, we wish you well in that, Mary, and it's good to know that you're in touch with the Gardaí, and it's good to know that the Gardaí are helping as much as they can.
Yeah. And there's one vanguard I can't name, of course, and she's brilliant. She is just going above her duty, her work, and she comes. And I'll be honest with you.
And I know there are so many Gardaí in the community in all stations who actually act like that, and it is great to see. Mary, we wish you well, and hopefully they will get to the bottom of this, and it will end.
But listen, thank you for ringing, because this phone call may help other people that is happening in Buncrana. All they need to do is go forward to the guards, give the...
Well, we certainly hope it does, Mary, and as I say, we wish you well.
I hope it does.
And
I think...
Yeah.
Yes.
And as I said, we wish you peace, and we wish you a good night's sleep. Mary, you take care of yourself.
Thank you very much for letting me on once more. It
is absolutely our pleasure, and hopefully, as you say, if this can lead to some respite, and if this can lead to some progress being made, all the better. Mary, you take care of yourself. That's Mary there speaking to us from Buncrana. Now, let's go to line 2, and to a lady who has made some of the best music ever to come out of this island, but she wants to talk about the decline of the Irish language since 1800. Mredni Winnie of Alton, Majinua.
Majinua, could you martesa Donal?
Gomairfat. Mredni say, a pleasure to speak to you. Few people do more than yourself to actually promote Irish language, Irish culture on local, national and international stages. And people are now learning in school Irish almost as an academic subject, and there's a long discussion about this. I mean, there's a discussion about should Irish remain a subject right up to Leaving Cert that's compulsory, and we'll get to that in a moment. But one of the things you're concerned about is that there now is a marked difference between what's taught in school and the actual tradition of Gaeilge and the richness of the Irish language and the Irish culture.
Well, it's not even that. It's the native language speakers. That number is declining. And, you know, when I was a teacher many, many moons ago, I remember looking at the actual syllabus that I was teaching in primary school, and it was so far removed from reality. You know, when you're trying to entice young children to learn a new language, it always has to be very attractive. The actual images have to be attractive, you know, if they're looking at a book or if they're looking at a movie or whatever. It has to be all colour and say you have to learn this language. But what I noticed was it was so far removed and so archaic. So I used to put the syllabus to one side and used to teach the children or tell them jokes in as Gaeilge, and they were all saying to me, "I thought you weren't allowed to actually laugh in Irish." You know? So it was a very strange one for me, coming from the Gaeltacht, and all we did was laugh. Yeah. So it's just it's a type of mindset. And I think it has to be taught in the proper way as well.
It has to be taught as a living, spoken, day-to-day language, not as an academic subject.
Well, I think people should be allowed to have books as well if they want to read books or whatever. But it should be taught in a very attractive way to make it open for young people to realise that this is their language. It's not something foreign from way over on the west coast, you know. What's happening? No, what's happening in the cities is that it is getting more popular, but the real old way of thinking in the Gaelic way is dying, because if you look at where all the Gaeltarts are, we're kind of on the west coast. Our next step is in the water.
Yeah. And they are, by and large, coastal communities. You're actually quite correct in saying that. Is there, and I know there's a big revival with the Gael Scoilna and the Gael Colossi, and, you know, it is coming up, and in cities all over the country and in towns all over the country, we have the Gael Scoilna, we have the Gael Colossi. But one of the worries, perhaps, is that whereas they're speaking and using Irish in those schools, they aren't maybe connecting to that tradition that you refer to. I mean, how big an issue is that?
Well, I don't think that would be the issue at all. I think if they're speaking it, that's well and good. But it's we say the richness of thought, which is where our English writers got their poetic way of writing. You know, even Joyce and Heaney and all of those people, they all claim that the richness of their English language, the Hiberno English that they had, that's what made them famous. And they're like, we have some of the best renowned English writers in the world, but it's all based on the rhythm of the Irish language and the poetic way things are described in Gaelic, you know. And that's what I don't want to lose.
Yeah.
I love the idea of children in Belfast and Dublin and Cork and all the big cities speaking in Irish. It is a different Irish, but that's evolution. That's how language evolves. But I would also like that the native speakers and the Gaeltacht areas wouldn't die, because it's so important to keep that the well alive as well.
Do you think in Irish?
I do.
No, because and
I
asked that.
In English.
Yeah, I asked that for a very specific reason, because I think that really is the key to language, and I think this is something that you're getting at here that's really important. I mean, I have, and I will be honest, I did my Leaving Cert in 1981, and what Irish I did in school up to 1981, that's the Irish I have. And if I ever tried to speak, and I do occasionally try to speak Irish during Seachtain na Gaeilge or whatever, but what I will do is I will think in English, I will translate what I'm thinking into the best I can do with my 40-year-old Leaving Cert Irish. I will recite that 40-year-old Leaving Cert Irish, and then if I have a hope in hell of understanding what comes back to me, very often if I listen, even if I listen to an Nook, I'll know it's something about something that happened in Dublin and something was stolen, and I will get the gist of what happened, possibly. But I will still be, in my head, I am translating. Whereas someone like yourself, who's grown up in the Gaeltacht, is actually thinking in the Irish language, and that's really what we're at risk of losing.
Yeah, well, I still think, you know, anybody with a second language, like when I'm in France, I have to think in Gaelic or in English, the way I learnt the language, and translate. And that's how you do it. But then you immerse yourself. If you're really committed to the language, you immerse yourself. You go down to Glencolumkill, to that fantastic course they have down there in Gael, like all our presidents have done, and you immerse yourself in the language, and the people come out of there. I've met people in Japan and America that actually went to Gael and were like native speakers. They were incredible. But, you know, for people to learn like that, you have to be totally committed.
Yeah. And
you have to totally immerse yourself in the whole language. And just a good way, if you haven't the chance to go to Glencolumkill to an adult course like that, or to Tory Island or places that have adult courses, is to have young children who are speakers, who are Gaelic speakers, converse with them, because people aren't as self-conscious when you're talking to children, and children usually correct you if you're wrong, and you don't feel so bad if it was an adult, we'll say. So a good way is to chat to children or to little ones who have the language off by heart, and will have fun with it. I think, you know, people have so many. I think Irish people in general have this awful inferiority complex when they think of the Gaelic language. They think, oh, it's to do with poverty, it's to do with this. And, you know, this historical baggage has always been there. And a lot of the Gaeltacht areas, if you come to West Donegal, the biggest opposition to the language is at the edge of the Gaeltacht, where people say, "Oh, I don't speak that language." They deny their language, which is very sad because they are just one generation away from it being dead, and it's up to them to keep it alive. But, that's up to people's personal choice, of course.
I suspect I'm typical in many ways, and I'll tell you where I am, and I'll give you just a little bit of my background and invite you to comment on it. I have a regret that I don't speak Irish, that I don't. As I said, I have what little bit of the Leaving Cert Irish I had from 1981. Whatever I've retained, that's what I have. I will very occasionally. I remember years ago, Sienna Campbell, the broadcaster, did a programme on RTE Radio 2, as it was called at the time, 2FM now, and she did a rock programme in the Irish language. And I listened to that because she was playing the music I liked. Ronan McAwee, and we send our best wishes to Ronan. I know he's not in a great place at the moment. Ronan, through the Nut service on Radio in the Gulf, is doing something very similar and is coming to people like me and bringing the language to us, playing the music that we want to hear. So you've got people like that, but by and large, my perception of Irish, particularly as a teenager, was it was a thing that was being forced on me in school. I had basically Peg Sayers and Toriacht Thema Dogus Coronia. They were the two books we had. And Peg Sayers said nothing to... and I can understand and appreciate it now. In my late 50s, I can look back and say, yes, Peg Sayers is a really important document of Irish life. The 14, 15-year-old Donal did not appreciate a bit of it. And as for the Torriach, I had no conception of that culture.
That's for an older person to appreciate. While I think there should be young literature for young people to entice young with their... What they're interested in, the rock music or whatever kind of music or outdoors activities or stories about, what's happening now. It should be more maybe urban based as well, because most of the population is in the urban area. And also, I think young children in the Gaeltacht areas would appreciate that, because they like going to Dublin, to Belfast, to Derry, to and they would understand that situation as well. Make it a modern language. Write the modern literature. Make the themes and make them real for the 14-year-olds and the 15-year-olds, and make it fun as well and attractive and maybe discuss serious issues like drugs and all that stuff that's in their minds at the moment. You can't talk about Peg Sayers or Toriacht Yermad and Grania. That's completely going back, and that has nothing to do with today's life. Although maybe when if they want to study it later on, they can have the choice of those amazing books. I love those books myself, I have to say.
And the interesting thing, I read the Toriacht in English when I was in my 20s and found it fascinating. But when I was 15, no.
No, well, this is the thing, it has to be age appropriate, no matter what, and make it as enticing as possible. I have to say that any time I've been to College Early in Letterkenny or any of those Gaelic-speaking schools, primary schools as well, there's a huge high percent, huge, what would I say, just fantastic Gaelic. When I speak to the children there, I went in playing music, and they had a fantastic grasp of the language, and were very the future is in their hands, in the young people that are speaking it.
And I think what I've always loved too is the Coláiste in Galway that do the Irish language version of Avicii songs and Ed Sheeran songs.
Oh, yes.
No, they'll never be quite as good as Donal agus Mordag, I have to say, but it's really great to hear that.
No, and we do have our own version of that. We have Emma Erishke, who sings, she does loads of lovely cover versions of songs, and I think it's really important to have that kind of youthful energy as well. And you have the Keelas of this world who kind of play world music and sing in Gaelic. And Liam O'Mwinley, and there are so many young people, even Imelda May, she really loves her language. I think when you leave home, you realise that we have this beautiful language that has and gives us such a lovely identity and sets us apart from other English-speaking nations when you are, we'll say, in Europe or in Asia or Australia. You know, you can say, well, we have our own language and our own way, you know, and it's really important for identity as well.
The discussion at the moment about whether or not Irish should remain a compulsory subject in the Leaving Cert, where do you sit on that particular debate?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it should be taught in primary school in a nice way and again, bring the children along rather than pushing it on them. But that's, I think, happening in primary school. But secondary school, life becomes difficult for children. And I think maybe up until the junior cert, yes, and then after that, make choices. And, of course, myself, if I had to learn a second language, I don't think I'd do very well. You know, I struggle with French and German when I'm away. But it's just some people have a knack to learn languages, other people don't. So I think there should be a choice after junior cert.
How significant is it that whenever you go to a different Gaeltacht or a different part of the country, you're going to hear completely different pronunciations? Because my father, God rest him, he's passed away since, but when my daughter was young, one of the things my dad used to love doing was get her to say the Our Father. Because the way she would say the Our Father, having been raised in Donegal, versus the way we would say it, having been raised in Waterford, you would swear they were two different languages.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and what my dad heard, what he heard was Arnar Tarnyai. That's what he heard. Whereas we would be saying Arnahar Tarnav Gunefra Dunham Godagadarik Gudensa the Holland and Tolov, you know, and we're all the MH is v as far as we're concerned. And I came up here and people were talking about Ní Fodric, and I was wondering why do people want to wash Patrick? I mean, you know, it's which is what I would, if you said to me Ní Fodric, I would say wash Patrick. Who's Patrick? That is the reality, you know.
Well, you see, this is what's so great with Ornagy and TG Cahar now is that we are all listening to all the different dialects, and you know, I understand most people down south, and you know, because I listen to Radio in the Gaeltacht every day. My work actually brings me to all these Gaeltacht areas, and I'm able to converse, and to me, I just retune my ear again. But yes, there are huge differences. But in any language, there is a dialect difference. And if you go to France, the same thing happens. Or if you go to if you go to any other country in in the world that's a large country, there will be dialect differences. But it's a matter of tuning in and not seeing it as an obstacle. Just say, well, I'll just tune in here and try and figure out what they're saying.
I know the estimate is that there's probably in the region of about 170,000 native speakers in the country at the moment, and maybe 10% of that, 17,000 in Donegal. Now, given the Gael Scullen and the Gael Colosty, and as you've said, Colosty, Ali and Letterkenny, and you get a very positive vibe whenever you go there. Are you hopeful that we're going to turn a corner here and that we will see a revival in Irish, not just in terms of people learning the language as an academic subject, but people getting into Irish and actually using the language on a day-to-day basis, and to get back to what we were talking about earlier, actually thinking in Irish?
Yeah, well, that's a big step from appreciating the language to thinking in Irish. But I think people have to open a bit and say, why are they against the language? Like, I don't know any other country that's against Irish language except here in Ireland. When I go to England, they just want to, like, if I'm in the BBC, they want to hear Gaelic. They never ask me to sing in English. While if I went to RTE, they say, oh, maybe you should sing an English song. You know, we'll lose the numbers if you sing in Irish. That's ridiculous. You know,
it is.
If you had Ali Farkatura and singing African, would you say the same to him? Please don't sing those songs that you sing. You know, he sings African. You know, African language. So you know, you just, you know, we have to just change our mindsets and just appreciate what we have, and let the speakers speak the Gaelic. And if you like the language, say it. And if you don't like the language, just try and open up to it a bit and learn a few words, because you're not talking about a language, you're talking about a way of thinking, you're talking about your psyche, and even the English language. If we lose this language, we lose so much of our own identity. We become English people or American people, because that's what we're looking at, you know, on TV all the time. English. There's hardly any Irish on it. And we just need to think of who we are and what we're doing, you know.
Ridney Winnie, it's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully your words will inspire people and perhaps inspire me to maybe sit back and get more into and expand on what's in deep in my mind from all those 40 years ago. Maria, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. Thank you very much, Donal. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
That's Maria Winnie there of Alton, of course, one of the absolute ambassadors of Irish culture and Donegal culture, and making a very good point there indeed in terms of the decline of the language since 1800, but hopefully with the Gael Colosty and with the Gael Scullina and with that new sort of appreciation, we will see a revival, and maybe there's a challenge to all of us, myself more than anyone. Let's take a break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
We should all be grateful to Vespula vulgaris, the common Irish wasp, because Vespula vulgaris is equipped with an early warning system, only audible when you're in harm's way, just like front assist, driver alert and lane assist. Early warning systems equipped as standard on Volkswagen's T-Cross, T-Roc and Taigo SUVs, which only kick in when you need them. Search Volkswagen SUV.
Volkswagen.
Join me, Marty Friel, every Friday night from 8 for Rockin' Hits on Highland Radio, in association with Arena 7, where you can enjoy dinner and drinks in a Woodbury Grill, Bar and Restaurant before bowling in Arena 7's state-of-the-art lanes. See arena7.ie.
If you're thinking of changing your washing machine, consider the brilliant 8kg 1400 spin washer from Blomberg. Raymond Sweeney here at Ben Sweeney Euronics. If you often need laundry washed in a hurry, this brilliant washing machine will get your daily clothes clean and fresh in under 30 minutes, saving money on your energy bills and giving you back valuable time. It also comes with a 7-year parts and labour warranty for peace of mind. Call in to us and see for yourself at Ben Sweeney Euronics, Port Road, Letterkenny, or in the shopping centre, Dunlow.
I've lost my car keys. Lost my car once in a multi-storey. Lost my patience. My hair? Lost that a while back. But this week, I found things I thought had gone forever. The crackle of needle on vinyl. Leaves, crunching. I found them all at Specsavers. I got free hearing aids with PRSI. And now those sounds are back. So's my joie de vivre. Still can't find those keys, though.
Book a free hearing test today. Terms and conditions apply. See our website for details.
Don't sleep in and miss the very latest beds and mattress offers from dfibeds.ie, Ireland's leading online bed and mattress retailer. You'll get a comfy Irish-made mattress, upholstered base and headboard from an amazing €229. Check out the full range at dfibeds.ie. Delivery free and guaranteed to you within 7 working days. DFI Beds. Sleep well, live well.
Why did I choose Ulster? I wanted a university who could give me the biggest possible future, but also the best possible time now. Somewhere I could make friends and have good crack, but also to set me up for the best job possible. I'm planning to take up one of the study abroad options, and then my big plan is to specialise in media law in LA. But for now, NI has one of the lowest student living costs in the UK. So, night markets, here I come.
Learn why over 30,000 students choose Ulster at ulster.ac.uk/go north. Apply now for this September.
National Broadband Ireland is delivering high-speed fibre broadband to homes, schools
schools and businesses across Ireland. We're laying the groundwork for a network that will enable almost 50 broadband providers to bring high-speed connections directly to your door. Over 100,000 premises are already ready to connect and enjoy speeds of up to 2 gigabit and future-proofed up to an amazing 10 gigabit. To find out more, talk to your preferred broadband provider or check your air code at nbi.ie. NBI, building a limitless Ireland, supported by the Government of Ireland.
Make great photos into beautiful gifts at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Different gift ideas include canvas prints, freestanding or ready-to-hang art blocks, and personalised photo books, perfect to mark any occasion. There's also jigsaws, calendars, mugs, and much more. For details, visit mcgees.ie. Turn your favourite moments into something truly special with McGee's Chemist Letterkenny.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Fancy a European city break this summer? Discover the beautiful cities of Barcelona, Cologne and Milan with Ryanair. 6 flights a week for summer 2023. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Well, the forecast and Met tell us we'll see a mix of sunny spells and showers with light to moderate southerly or variable winds at first. Those winds veering west to northwest in western parts this morning. A spell of wet and increasingly windy weather sweeping right across the region over the course of the mid-morning and into the early afternoon. Some damaging gusts possible with winds increasing strong and gusty. Gales in coastal areas as well for a time. Don't forget there is a wind warning, as Donal has been telling you on news over the course of the day. That rain will clear eastwards later this afternoon and evening, but strong winds will persist into tonight. It'll stay rather cool today, highs of just 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. Now, were you in a car driving around Letterkenny yesterday, or indeed over the course of Monday or yesterday driving anywhere in the vicinity of Dunfanaghy, Creasla, Downings, Carrigart, that general area of Cloughaneely and East Donegal, heading toward the west? If so, I'll bet you were caught in a tailback, because we saw bank holiday tailbacks longer, I think, than we've ever seen them before in terms of time. We are well used to having huge bank holiday tailbacks on a bank holiday Monday at 5 to 6. I mean, as I said once, I would not attempt to drive out of Letterkenny on a bank holiday from about 4 o'clock onwards in the afternoon. I would just stay home and either stay home or go elsewhere in the county and stay there until 7 o'clock, because you're trying to drive in Letterkenny on a bank holiday Monday at 6, stand clear, especially if you're trying to head out the 4-lane, heading out toward Derry and Northern Ireland. However, it seems that this weekend we saw more of that for a much longer period. Let's go to Zoom and speak to the Mayor of the Letterkenny Milford Municipal District, Councillor Donal Mandy Kelly. Donal, good morning.
Good morning, Donal, and good morning to all your listeners there.
You spoke about this at length at a municipal district meeting that took place yesterday afternoon. In fact, it was noticeable that the meeting was due to start. Quite a number of members were actually late arriving to the meeting because they were stuck in traffic.
Yeah, Donal, you're 100% correct. And I suppose, listen, you could say, I suppose, the motion I had forward, you could say in one way it was timely, but in another way this was going on far, far too long. And I mean, you're 100% correct, Donal. There was actually 4 or maybe 5 councillors yesterday where we had to delay the meeting from they're stuck in traffic, and I was one of them, Donal, coming in from the Glen Swilly side, and I know there's councillors coming in from the Elton side, and what was alluded to yesterday, a trip that usually would take 5 minutes from the golf course on to 35 minutes, you know, and that's absolutely shocking. It's shocking what is going on, Donal, in the town at the minute, and you know, I'm eager to get resolved, because like, we are local representatives, we are getting it in the ear, and rightly so. People is absolutely fed up. They're what's the end of what's going on at Letterkenny at the minute. And Donal, it's come to a stage, you know, that, you know, I hate saying it, but I feel at the minute that our traffic management system is failing, and something needs to be done. And that's the reason that I put a motion forward yesterday, Donal, because I want the NTA, TI, Senior Roads Management, Donegal County Council, and roads design, I want them all around the table where we can clash heads and come up with a realistic solution to addressing this ongoing issue in Letterkenny, because we can't stand back and let it continue, Donal. Because, you know, I've also been contacted by business owners in the town that, you know, they're suffering. Businesses are suffering. And it's shocking, and it's all down to the traffic management. You know, the tailbacks of traffic is absolutely shocking. And there's people actually made aware going across the border, the shop, instead of coming in to their own local town and Letterkenny. And I mean, when you hear stories like that going on, it's dire. Like, and we need to shut down as a council, as our local authority, Donegal County Council, along with the MTA and the PII and road design, and see how we address this going forward, because I say, it's getting worse.
For the past 15 to 20 years, the panacea, what's been regarded as the cure to all our ills, has been the mythical Bonagee link and the second bridge across the Swilly. And the thought process has been that once you can get that second bridge across the Swilly, you'll take a lot of traffic out of Letterkenny town centre. You'll get traffic moving a lot more smoothly coming in from that Ramelton side, depending on where obviously you actually put the bridge in. And I know there's differing views between different councillors as of whether that bridge, the link road, should be closer to the Ramelton side or closer to the Letterkenny side, and that's going to be an ongoing debate, I suspect. But I mean, is it that simple to say that the answer to the tailbacks we saw yesterday, and that was the first time I recall it really stretching into a Tuesday as much as it did. The Bank Holiday Mondays, I said Bank Holiday Monday at 6 o'clock. Yeah, that's been a feature for years, every Bank Holiday Monday. But that was the first time I saw it stretch, and at lunchtime, most days I drive from the mountaintop down into the town centre because it's where my office is. And, you know, I had not seen tailbacks like I saw yesterday driving down, and I went home for a quick sandwich before going to the meeting. And yeah, it was what should have taken me 5 minutes took me about 15. And we're told that the second bridge will solve everything. Is it that simple, or is it going to be more complicated than that?
It's never that simple. But listen, what we have at the minute, the end of the saying, it's not working. We definitely need a bridge, and I mean, I've been lobbying there recently about a Bonagee link and the bridge over the Swilly, and it's something that has to happen. It has to happen. And for bars, two bridges done. This, the Glen Swilly side, if you like, of Letterkenny as well, to alleviate traffic congestion there. You know, this is something we have to be looking into in the future. And I mean, people are saying Bonagee link and the bridge over the Swilly for years. And I mean, it has been talked for years, and I'm not that long in the council, Donal, maybe going on my third year here, but it's something that I'm eager to put as much pressure as possible on to try and get this project started. Yeah. Because it's a must. You know, and as much as, like, listen, when you see traffic coming into Letterkenny, there's a good side to it too. You welcome visitors in, and you know, they're going to spend money within Donegal, not just Letterkenny, but or holiday resorts as well, if you like, the likes of the Downings and Carrick and down around Fannin. I mean, what we have to offer here is second to none, and it's great to see people coming in, but we have to have the roads facility to cater for that. And at the minute, we don't have that. Yeah. And what is happening, Donal, is people, they're coming in here surely holiday makers and they're spending a pound, which is great, but it's going to come to a stage where they're not going to want to come near it. I mean, who wants to sit in traffic a 5-minute journey for 35 minutes or an hour, whatever it may be? Yeah. And another factor, Donal, is, God forbid, if there had been an accident, emergency services needed at a home, you know, anything at that example, where were they going to go? How were they going to get there? And I mean, if someone calls for emergency service, they need them pronto. You know, and they don't have an hour to wait. And there's circumstances where they have minutes or seconds to wait. You know, and this is something that we need to be addressing to get the road network feasible and working, and have their businesses back up and running the way they should be within Letterkenny town as well.
Yeah, it was noticeable. Having attended the meeting yesterday myself, I mean, it was noticeable. I would say probably a minimum of 33% of the meeting yesterday was taken up with discussion on roads and road links and connections in and around Letterkenny. At least 33%, if not more.
Yeah, you're correct. There, like, as I stated yesterday at the meeting, there was 3 different motions there. My own, the traffic congestion. You had Councillor Bradley that brought on about the local transport, the town bus, and Then you had Councillor McMonigal had a motion forward about Wendy Hall, and which Councillor Kieran Brogan has been highlighting time and time again. And I mean, Councillor Brogan actually facilitated a meeting with ourselves, councillors, and our roads engineer, supervisor, and roads design out on Wendy Hall. And you know, places like that need addressed, and you know, that was a very informative meeting to get out on the ground and see firsthand, and especially for our roads people to see firsthand what we're taking to the table, what the people we represent, you know, want addressed. And you know, it's very important that we do that and continue to do that. And emotions like that coming forward on the one meeting, I mean, it stands to sense there's a massive issue that needs addressed here. And you know, myself as mayor of Letterkenny Milford Municipal District, I want to see these addressed. Yeah. I want to see the town. I mean, we are talking about Letterkenny turning it on in years to come to a city status. I mean, we have the ATU there at the minute, a fantastic university, you know, and we're struggling with accommodation, we're struggling with housing, we're struggling with roads. I mean, that's shocking. It is absolutely shocking, you know. And, like, we need to sit down around the table and clash heads here, and have, I suppose, if you like, the senior management take on board exactly what we want done, and what the people out there that we are representing that is left on the phone and calling us with their concerns and issues, looking for them addressed. We need to get these people around the table, sit down, clash the heads, and come up with a realistic plan. Because, Donal, as I say, and I've stated time and time again, it's simply not working.
I mean, and I can tell you the comments are coming in. You're talking about the same thing, traffic, but no answers. Ask the councillor, what's the solution? We'd love to hear it. You're talking about the same thing. You talked about it last year. You'll be talking about it next year. Another caller says, stop putting in all the extra traffic lights. Another caller saying that 4-lane into Letterkenny is a disgrace. I witnessed 2 ambulances come to a standstill last week. Why was there not an emergency lane left there? Now, I know the 4-lane is another issue, and it didn't really get discussed at the meeting, and maybe that's a conversation for another day, because there is a lengthy conversation to be had there too. You're hoping, I know you're hoping to get a meeting together.
No doubt about it. What's going on the 4-lane?
Yeah,
you know, it is shocking.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. And, I mean, myself, like I wasn't. Well, this was passed before I came under the council, and I wouldn't have been for it, to be quite honest, because the bridge over the Swilly is key. The Bunagee link is key. You know, with the 10T project, we need updates on all these here. We have the Southern Relief Road, we have Wendy Hall, we have the A5. You know, we need to get an update on where all these are at and get them moving forward.
So the bottom line of your motion was you want the council engineers, the road planning office, the National Transport Authority, Transport Infrastructure Ireland, which would formerly have been the roads network, or the National Roads Authority would have been its previous name. I mean, is that meeting going to happen, and will the right people come down from Dublin, the people that can make decisions? Because if the people that can make decisions aren't sitting around that table and aren't in the position to engage in dialogue, well, then the meeting is going to be for naught, really.
Yeah, well, listen, Donal, I'm going to do everything in my power to try and ensure that it happens. I mean, Donal, listen, you always have them few that want to slip the net, that don't want to come in front of us as the local representative, because, but let's call a spade a spade. There's a lot of the time they don't want to hear what we have to say, and you know, and we're the people on the ground. We know what's needed here, and I'll be pushing forward, Donal, to have this meeting. Listen. Listen, it will happen.
Yeah,
I can assure it will happen. But what I can't assure is will all the relevant bodies be around the table. But that's something that I have requested now, and it's up to our own local authority now to take that on board and try to get it up and running, get everyone around the table, clash heads, and come up with a realistic solution to address this problem going forward.
Councillor Donal Mandy Kelly, Mayor of Letterkenny Milford Municipal District, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio, 10 o'clock. Going to be slightly delayed getting to news. Donna Marie's on the way, but right now we'll take a short break.
For confirmation and first communion, there's a great selection of suits, casual wear and footwear at Watson Menswear in Letterkenny. Top brands include 1880 Club, Diesel and Tommy Bow Footwear, all at great prices. Stand out for the big day at Watson Menswear. Open 7 days a week on Main Street, Letterkenny, and at watsonmenswear.com.
Boys Travel Ramelton continue to provide quality tours to top attractions including Bloom in the Park, Dublin Zoo and Emerald Park, formerly Tato Park. For details on these and many more tours, see Boys Tours on Facebook or call 9151043.
Century Complex is the perfect family day out. Kids will love exploring Century Play. Lots of tasty food options available at Backstage and Baitas, and Century Cinemas are showing exciting kids movies, comedies, dramas, action movies and more. Call us on 074 91 21976 or visit centurycinemas.ie for more information.
Remember a loved one with a personalised memorial, acknowledgement or wallet cards from BizPrint using your choice of wording and background. Call in and speak to Catherine at BizPrint, Port Road, Letterkenny, or call 91 779 55.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's Donna Marie Doherty with the news slightly after 10 o'clock. An Inish Owen councillor has hit out after a number of people were captured on CCTV footage illegally dumping behind a supermarket. 10 waste bags in total were deposited into bins behind the store in Muff in recent days. Gardaí and Donegal County Council have been notified of the incident. Councillor Terry Crossan has called the act unacceptable and opportunistic.
I called the litter warden. He examined the contents of the bags and then arranged for them to be picked up for closer examination. My issue here is businesses have to pay a lot of money for the disposal of their own waste, and it is totally unacceptable for opportunistic behaviour like this to happen.
Donegal Into Rep Mary T. Sweeney is condemning the latest figure that 8,500 legal abortions were received last year. It's reported that 85% of women who have an abortion have so due to socio-economic reasons. Mary T. Sweeney says it's a tragedy.
The killing of babies by abortion, by legalised abortion, is tragedy. It is a tragedy for the Irish people that we have lost those classrooms full of children that that should be here growing up in our society because mothers can't afford to have their babies. They believe there is help and support out there for those mothers. Look up groups like Donegal Pro-Life, Chiana Care. There are lots of groups out there who will come and help and try and give offer support to mothers in crisis.
A Donegal councillor says the lack of will from Donegal County Council to build homes in rural areas is already affecting school numbers in the rural areas. That's according to Councillor Martin McDermott, who says the lack of delivery of SA housing is severely negatively impacting rural areas. Councillor McDermott says there needs to be a shift in the mindset of the council.
We've been pushing this now for a number of years, and we're still in a situation where SA houses, and particularly here in Inishowen, there's been none built. As a council, we're taking this seriously. There would be houses built because there are families that are prepared to give land to the local authority to build SA houses for family members. We can give out about the department, we can give out about everybody else, but I think our own council, first of all, has to get their act together and make this happen, and then push it down the line to the department and get the department to grant the funding for these houses.
Letterkenny Milford Municipal District has been told it's not possible to secure active travel funding to bring a footpath from Woodland School to the town boundary. It was raised by Councillor Jimmy Kavanagh, who said the path is necessary for both safety reasons and as a community resource. Members were told that active travel funding is only available within the urban speed limit area, but they will continue to try and source external funds. Councillor Kavanagh says a way must be found.
There's so many complaints to get from people out there at school time and the excess of cars and the parking and the danger of that and so on. So it tackles all those problems and it promotes the healthy lifestyle and healthy Ireland and all these things and the green agenda as well. We just need to find a way of pushing this.
A group of doctors say they're tired of seeing young lives derailed by cannabis use and claim there's been little attempt by government or the HSE to counter pro-cannabis messaging. It comes ahead of the Citizens' Assembly on Drug Use, which will hold its first meeting next weekend. Aoife Cairns reports.
In a letter published by the Irish Times, the group, which includes the head of Trinity College's School of Medicine and 2 former IMO presidents, say concerns raised about the health implications of cannabis use remain ignored. They say for people under the age of 25, it's the most common substance generating demand for addiction services and is a bigger issue than alcohol. The letter cited hospital admission data for 2020, which indicated that over 1,000 people were admitted to medical and psychiatric hospitals with a cannabis-related diagnosis. The group of 21 doctors told the paper legalising cannabis isn't the answer to resolving these issues and hopes renewed priority is given to prevention and treatment in the Citizens' Assembly on drugs use.
And now to weather. A yellow wind warning is in operation for Donegal until 8 p.m. today. Winds will veer west to northwest in western parts of Ulster this morning, and a spell of wet and increasingly windy weather will sweep eastwards over the province later. Rather cool today with highs of just 6 to 8 degrees. That's all for now. We'll be back again with the latest at the 11 o'clock headlines. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices this Wednesday morning, April 12th. The death has taken place of Mary Teresa Trearty, née Duddy, of Kilmaclue, Creasla, reposing at her home from 11 a.m. today. Funeral Mass in St Michael's Church, Creasla, on Friday at 11 a.m, followed by burial in Doe Graveyard. Mass can be viewed on MCN Media. Family time from 11 p.m. to 10 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu if desired to the Creasla Day Centre, care of any family member or James Harkin, funeral director. The death has occurred of Nora Shovlin, Connaughty, Ardra. Remains will repose at her home from 2 p.m. until 10 p.m. today. Funeral from there at 12:40 tomorrow, going to the Church of the Holy Family for Requiem Mass at 1 p.m. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The death has occurred of Anne McKay, Cloughan, Ballindrate, Lifford. Anne is reposing at her sister Katrina and Tony O'Neill's resident Cloughan, Ballindrate all day today. Funeral from Cloughan tomorrow morning at 11:20 a.m, going to St Patrick's Church, Murlog for 12 noon Requiem Mass with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Mass can be viewed on the Clonlee Parish website. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu if desired to the Donegal Hospice or the Irish Heart Foundation, care of any family member or Kelly's funeral directors. The death has taken place of Carmel Hunter, née McCormick, 3 Mornbeg Road, Castlederg, and formerly of Donamana, reposing at her home. Funeral leaving her home tomorrow morning at 10:50 a.m. for Requiem Mass in St Patrick's Church, Kavanagh, Donamana at 12 noon. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Donations in lieu of flowers please to ovarian cancer research, care of Quigley funeral directors. The house is strictly private to family and close friends only. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the Donaghedy Parish YouTube. The death has taken place of Pete Doherty, Drim, Cloughan. Family time until 12 noon today. Removal at 4:30 p.m. this afternoon to repose in the oratory of the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Succour, Glenfin, to arrive for 5 p.m. Rosary is at 8 p.m. Requiem Mass at 12 noon tomorrow, with burial afterwards in Kiltyvogue Cemetery. The funeral mass can be viewed live on MCN Media. The death has taken place of Pat Tully, Pound Street, Carndonagh. Funeral from her home this morning at 10:30 a.m. to the Church of the Sacred Heart, Carndonagh, for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The death has occurred of Mary McKinney, Gorton Amok, Castlefin. reposing at the home of her brother Jimmy and sister-in-law Mary McKinney, Gorton Amok in Castlefin. Funeral from there this morning at 10:30 a.m. for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m. in St Mary's Church, Castlefin, with interment afterwards in St Mary's Cemetery. Family flowers only please, donations in lieu if desired to St Joseph's Hospital, Stranorlar, Finview Ward, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Thomas Tom Connolly, Killyclug, Letterkenny. Funeral from his late residence this morning for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m. in St Eunan's Cathedral, followed by interment in Leck Cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed on Church Services website. House private this morning, please. Family flowers only. Donations in lieu of flowers to the orthopaedic ward of Letterkenny University Hospital. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
The new Steakhouse Stack is here.
Say what?
With 2 beef patties, crispy onions and peppercorn sauce. It's McDonald's, but the kind of McDonald's you'd make an occasion of. The kind that asks, date night, and answers, you bet. That deserves a lunch day, not just a lunch hour. The new Steakhouse Stack. It's McDonald's. And then some. Available until the 9th of May. Served from 11 a.m. Participating restaurants only.
Good morning. It's the second hour of the 9 till noon show on this Wednesday morning, the 12th of April. Some of your comments, we were speaking to Mairead Nwini about the Irish language before the 10 o'clock news, and caller says, conversing with people from Connemara in Irish, it was total double Dutch, trying to understand the Nocht on radio, and I cannot because it's a totally different dialect. Another caller says, my kids have been doing Irish in school for years, they can't get a grip of it, and yet French was introduced a few weeks ago and they're all flying with it. What is it about Irish that's so difficult? Another caller says something similar. My cousin learnt more French than Irish as his teacher was more passionate. Look at Joe McHugh, a Minister for Gaeltacht, hadn't a word of Irish, and Kenny sent him to Glencullen. We Daniel learn it there too, although he probably sang for his supper there. And look at him now presenting Gloratera like he was a native speaker. That comment comes in from Kevin, who is in Dunlow. Good morning to you, Kevin. We spoke to Mary in the first hour. She was in Buncrana and she was being terrorised by people kicking at her door and banging on her windows at night. Caller says the same lads climbed onto a shop roof last week and threw tiles at cars. Another caller says there are no fun in people banging on old people's doors and windows. With regards to the Biden visit, the DUP can put the US and EU under threat to the extent that they're coming with loads of money to try and get them back into Stormont. Donegal has been starved of funds for hundreds of years because they kept quiet and didn't cause any trouble for the Dublin government. And they're giving the promise of money to the DUP as well. That's an interesting comment there. Caller says, with all due respect to President Joe Biden, neither he, the US, nor Dublin can provide any real inspiration to the educationally and economically deprived communities in Northern Ireland. The economic benefits Biden is promising will go to the select wealthy few, not to the poor. There is simply no inspiration provided to the young in Cregan or in West Belfast, as shown by recent events. Little has changed, sadly, in poor communities over the past 25 years. The native language of Ireland provides an inspiration, but that's simply forbidden by those in power to be discussed, and the native language must be hindered and stamped out where possible. So says Raymond. Now, with regards to the Irish language, a caller says, I think we need a similar TV show to the one in Ranna Ferrishta at Railton the Gaeltacht. In Glencullen too, quite a few from Ranna Fast married there, and a Paul Mescal film was shot there. I also heard a review on Duolingo. As I found out, it's in the Donegal dialect, and that was the only gripe about it from a Cork reviewer. I came and that's from Cuiveen in Clohanlia. I'm not sure if that's the same Kevin from Dunlow or a different Kevin from Dunlow. Caller says, some years ago I used to work in Galway. The job was outside. Many of my Connemara colleagues all spoke Gaelic. When I said we have a lot of Gaelic speakers in Donegal, he said, no you don't, you have Scots Gaelic in Donegal. I felt totally insulted. The traffic discussion we had with Councillor Donal Mandy Kelly was one that understandably got a lot of reaction. Caller says, nothing new. I honestly cannot see a new road easy easing the traffic. Another caller says all happens is that money is wasted and all you have to do is look at the roads there at the moment. Another caller says the traffic in Letterkenny has been a total disaster for years now. I live outside of the town on the Derry Road. Unfortunately, I have to go into Letterkenny at 6 to collect my child. Traffic is usually at a standstill from the Neil T. Blaney Road heading toward the Polestar. Yes, it is very busy there. In the evenings, I have a daughter who works in that particular area, and yeah, she finds herself caught in traffic pretty much every day trying to get home. Why don't Donegal County Council go into Derry and talk to the engineers there? They don't have the same backlogs and roundabouts there work great. So says a caller. Another caller says, please chat about something that actually might happen. Fair enough. Our national roads throughout the county need a good lick of tar compared to other counties. They're in a bad state. So says a caller. Why are we not communicating with the 10T Roads project for the bridge and new roads? They're in the planning process. In fact, that was highlighted on our news yesterday. We spoke to Councillor Jerry McMonigal for the 5 o'clock news last evening, and he made exactly that point, that the 10T is progressing and it's in the planning stages, and hopefully we may get the Bunagee link and bridge as part of that ongoing process. But it is a process. What Councillor Kelly is saying is he wants to have a meeting to make sure that there is joined up thinking locally and nationally. Now, for those of you who play Highland Radio NCBI Radio Bingo, it's time to grab your books, it's time to grab your pens, and in just a moment I will hand you over to Canis.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Wednesday the 12th of April. You're playing on the blue sheet. The reference number is S13. It's game number 15. The numbers are 80, 46, 26, 43, 25, 70, 58, 19, 48, and finally 33. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Letterkenny Medics are pleased to announce that Dr. Paula Gomez has joined the practice and is now taking appointments for free meal screening with services that include complete medical examinations, physical examinations, blood tests, cervical smears, advice on menopausal fertility hormone profile, AMH urinalysis, cervical smear, ECG and 24-hour blood pressure monitoring. Choose your level of service you need today and find out more by booking your immediate appointment by visiting letterkennymedics.ie. Letterkenny Medics. We listen if you want to talk.
Donegal Denture Clinic, Letterkenny. Denture problems? We can help. At Donegal Denture Clinic, we customise, personalise and tailor your dentures to suit you. Call us for a free consultation on 91 25 25 3. Find us at Ballyrain, Letterkenny, beside Rossin College. Medical cards welcome. For all your denture needs, call Donegal Denture Clinic on 91 25 25 3. Online at donegaldentureclinic.ie.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's 19 minutes past 10. Now, if you listen to Highland Radio News on a regular basis, you'll have heard several discussions over the past few months about the All Ireland Rail Review, and you'll have heard us reference on more than one occasion that said review is complete, but it couldn't be published because it had to be cleared by the Irish government in Dublin, by the UK government in London, and also it had to be cleared by Stormont, and there wasn't a functioning Stormont executive to clear it. Now, judging by a story that's appeared on the Journal, it appears that is going to be published because Stormont is effectively going to be bypassed. Owen Dalton is a reporter at the Journal. He can tell us more. Owen, good morning.
Morning, Donal.
Owen, we in the Northwest, unsurprisingly, have been tracking this All-Ireland Rail Review for quite some time. We understand it has some very interesting things in it, and we're awaiting its publication. Concern here has been that it'll sit on a shelf because of Stormont's inactivity. You believe that's not going to be the case?
Yeah, so we have been covering this over the last couple of months, and most recently the Department of Transport has now told us that its officials are looking at recent legislation that was passed in the House of Commons as a way of publishing the report without Stormont needing to be sitting and working, I suppose. And the legislation that was passed was in November time, and that legislation was, I suppose, effectively, it was passed through the House of Commons partly to extend the deadline for Stormont to return, but also it contained details around the decision-making powers, particularly for civil servants who have effectively been running departments in the absence of elected politicians.
The review is going to have a number of very interesting things in it. It's going to have a lot to do with the Western Transport Corridor, with train services in Sligo, Mayo, Galway, Roscommon, etc. A lot of attention is going to be focused there. But obviously here in the Northwest, the big focus is going to be on north-south links and restoration of links, potentially between Letterkenny and Derry, and also talk about taking a line from Portadown back in via Strabane and in through Lifford and into Donegal that way. How, by your understanding of what's in the report, how concrete are those proposals? Are they written as actual proposals, or are they written as vague aspirations?
It's a good question. I think that's the thing that applies to any report of this nature. Eamon Ryan has spoken about it as Transport and Climate Minister. He has spoken about this really a lot of times in the last couple of months. He seems to be quite eager for it. He spoke most recently to my colleague Ty McNally in the Journal in just the last fortnight, speaking about how these lines are, in a lot of cases, are existing. I know that's not necessarily the case with, say, the Letterkenny-Derry line, but that these lines, in a lot of cases, are existing. It's relatively cheap. We mean that in government terms, in terms of government budget, to actually bring them back into use. In terms of Ireland's climate targets, which have a 2030 deadline, this, I suppose, this is looked at as a one way of trying to lessen emissions. The reason for that is because these lines at the moment are being spoke of in terms of the report, which we should say is not quite in draft form yet. It still looks to be a few weeks away from that. But the report seems to be putting these lines forward for freight, which then you would be looking at, I suppose, taking trucks, taking lorries off the road, and instead transporting goods via train instead, with then the potential that these lines could then become open for passenger travel as well. And we have seen, I've heard this a number of times, and the figures show it as well, Ireland has seen, I suppose, a public transport boom, I guess, since the pandemic ended, which apparently it is a bit of an outlier in Europe. I suppose that might be partly due to public transport fares were halved in the last 12 months. But I suppose in terms of the likelihood of this report being implemented, it does seem there is quite a bit of political will there. There is a organised coalition of what are pretty much voluntary rail groups. And they put out a release about 2 months ago setting out that there were 4 options for, I suppose, proceeding with this report. And I suppose some of those rail groups this week, and they are across the country. I'm in Waterford myself. There are ones in the southeast, they're in the northwest, west, they're in the north. One thing that some of their members were telling me this week is, look, they would hope to lobby to see if funding can be set aside for the upcoming budget. They don't want this to be a case of it sitting on a shelf. I think they also, speaking to some of those people, they believe that this it might have a better chance of getting this over the line when this government is possibly trying to seek, and particularly the Green Party, we know are under a lot of pressure at the moment via the eviction ban and the housing crisis, and that, I suppose, look, if it is a case that we are going to an election the next 18 months, they need to be able to show that they have stuff for the people who have voted for them. They need to show that they've been able to get stuff over the line. There is a real hope, I guess, there from the coalition of rail groups that this can be, I suppose, progressed within the next 18 months with budget for later this year being the first step out of the way.
Because the fickleness really of politics, and let's face it, the Greens' political future is going to be uncertain once there is a general election. Are the Green Party going to be involved in the next government, whatever the makeup of that new government may be? And it could well be that Eamon Ryan is involved in the next incoming government, and that he maintains his commitment to those lines. And he's been particularly strong on this idea of getting a line from Portadown through Strabane and into Donegal that way. And he's mentioned that in the Dáil on more than one occasion over the course of the past year. But equally so, if the Greens are not involved in the next government, and if Eamon Ryan is not in a position of power, then perhaps that big champion is not going to be there. And being honest about it, whereas Eamon Ryan can make some positive noises over the next 18 months, when it comes to actual decisions and funding decisions about rail investment based on this report, that's not 18 months down the line. That's probably minimum 3 to 4 years down the line.
Yeah, and I just even on that, I mean, one thing I suppose some of those rail groups I was speaking to, they were nervous about is that some of these proposals that we understand are contained in the report are controversial, I guess, and maybe not so much actually in the Northwest, but where particularly in the Galway to Mayo, it would be Athenry to Claremorris, those two towns, and then also a Wexford to Waterford line. There's been a controversy around those lines because they are essentially looking to reverse what has become a bit of a policy over the last decade in those parts of the country of converting rail lines to greenway cycle routes for tourism purposes. And this report looks to, I suppose, now upend that proposal. There's been a lot of unhappiness, I suppose, towards that from people who, I guess, wanted to proceed down the greenway route. That is something that the rail groups have mentioned, I suppose, in the last couple of weeks, as they would be afraid that suddenly some of these plans could be upended if basically no work gets going on them. And if this is allowed to sit on a shelf for the next 18 months or so, I suppose just in terms of what's happening in the immediate couple of months is that the Department of Transport in Dublin has told me that it is looking to potentially put out the report, a draft of it for public consultation in Q2. So that's relatively soon. And that would be in case they have to do an environmental screening assessment, which is really, I suppose, it's an environmental impact procedure that has to be done. They said it's not a guarantee they'll have to do such an assessment. I imagine they will have to, on the basis of the work that is involved here, because this is stretching along a couple of dozen kilometres in different parts of the country, if not more. So you're looking, I suppose, we could see a draft of the report published in the coming weeks. And then from there, people will be able to make submissions on it as well. But we'll have a very good idea of what shape it is taking.
As you said, some of the lines are perhaps more ready than others to be recommissioned, particularly lines where there are either still tracks in the ground or at the very least the track lines are there and importantly, the land is in government or state ownership. We're going to get a situation if you're trying to develop new lines, particularly in an area like Donegal, where there hasn't been a rail network per se in over 40 years. You're potentially talking about a massive compulsory purchase in some cases, land purchase, starting from scratch. Almost one would have thought the government's going to take the path of least resistance, which would be prioritise the ones that will get done relatively easily, and the ones that would be really difficult, that would involve that huge infrastructural investment, put those on the long finger. And the fear would be perhaps that Donegal and the Northwest will find itself very much on the long finger.
Yeah, and I think that's a very realistic possibility as well. And it's probably something that I can imagine a lot of people in the Northwest will be guarded about. I always think we regularly see memes and the likes going around online of the old rail network, and I suppose how Donegal has been impacted in that. I think, funnily enough, if we go back to what we were talking about, the greenway cycle routes there is a bit of a roadmap per se in terms of how local authorities and how state bodies can do these large scale CPOs in the modern era. And that's, again, I'm looking at, I know, like you go back to, say, Waterford, a massive CPO was done about 10 years ago there to set up a really quite lengthy of several dozen kilometres greenway route. You're looking at something like that, but you're right, it'll be on a larger scale. there'll be a lot of negotiation, but there is a fear that it can be put in the long finger. I think that can't be denied either.
I mean, I certainly remember I came up here to work, coincidentally, from Waterford in 1990. And I walked over to Plunkett Station to buy a train ticket from Waterford to Donegal, and I went to the ticket office, and the person behind the ticket office pointed to the map and said, "You see the map behind me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You see that big huge white spot up in the top left?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "That's Donegal." And I ended up getting a train to Dublin and a bus from Dublin. So yeah, I mean, and it's been, I mean, there haven't been trains running in Donegal for many, many years. As you said, the Greenway one is interesting because, I mean, a lot of the Greenways and the Waterford Greenway pretty much built on what was the old Waterford to Cork railway line. And I'm old enough to remember trains running on that line, actually, particularly they used to run to Ballynacorty, to the big factory that was there in Ballynacorty, just beyond Clonea. And I would well remember freight trains. I believe I was actually on the last passenger train between, I think, Durrow and Dungarvan. I was on the last passenger train that travelled that line. And I was about 3 at the time. But, I mean, you know, again, that whole line is now a Greenway. So even if someone were to say the Waterford-Cork line should be reinstated, it's not going to happen now. And maybe the Greenway thing is, I mean, they're developing Greenways in Donegal at the moment. None, as I understand, well, some, there is one actually that's going from Derry to Newton Cunningham. And that would be roughly where there would have been lines in the past. So there's going to be a lot of planning involved in that. Will there be a provision in this report, do you believe, to sort of allow for planning for CPOs, allow for planning for land acquisitions before those decisions are made? Or, you know, will we see maybe indicative routes and all that being discussed first before we get into the nitty-gritty of, do you actually put in the money?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think there has to be some indication of a route. I suppose, look, in terms of the Athenry to Claremorris for Galway Mayo and the Wexford to Waterford line, the routes are there. So, you know, like I suppose, like we have that idea. It might be a bit premature to try to do something similar for particularly in the northwest. I think just in terms of, go back to what you're saying about the greenways there as well, like I know with the Wexford to Waterford one, and now provision has been made, I think, to do a draft feasibility study of an alternative greenway route to, I suppose, ease the tensions that have been there. And similarly, there is another line which would be Waterford to New Ross, and New Ross would be a town in South Wexford. And I suppose, like, talking to some of the rail groups, they haven't been too, how would I put it? They're not too nonplussed about, I guess, they're nonplussed about losing that line, partly because and this is something that you'll find with some rail lines along the way. It could well have been like similar to the Durrow line that you were speaking of there. Some of them can be quite curved. And from what I understand, it means the trains can't really pick up that much of a speed, which you really need if you're going to be trying to make be it passenger travel or freight travel an attractive option in the years to come. You need these trains to be able to go at a pretty good speed. And that's similarly, I think part of this rail review is also looking at trying to increase speed on your lines for Dublin to Belfast and possibly also Dublin to Cork.
And what's the status of Waterford Rosslare at the moment? I mean, that's been decommissioned for some time now, hasn't it? Or will trains get back on that again, do you think?
Yeah, so that's been decommissioned for some time, and this was a route that was earmarked for a greenway, and I would have sat in on as in earlier days in journalism, I sat in on council meetings where councillors in neighbouring counties were voting to allow their rail line to be, I suppose, decommissioned and converted to greenway use, and that's still going ahead. Because again, I guess it might not be as feasible to kind of recommission those lines for train use. But in case of, I suppose, Waterford Wexford, key here is Rosslare. Yeah. Rosslare, your report, that has become, in light of Brexit, a really key strategic point, and that's not just in words, that's in legislation as well, for Ireland. And I suppose particularly I look for transport of goods, especially. And so what I suppose is now being looked at is using that line connecting, I guess, Rosslare to Waterford to bring that back into train use. It has been out of use, I believe, for just over a decade now. Yeah.
Owen, it's a fascinating issue, and we'll be discussing this a lot more over the course of the coming weeks and months. But for the moment, Owen Dalton, reporter at The Journal, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thanks very much, Donal.
Thank you, Owen. Take care. Right, that's Owen there of The Journal. We're going to take a short break. Back in a moment, we'll be speaking to one of our local councillors about this issue.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Breedon's Furniture, Cooley-Maville. With over 40 years of experience in furniture and floor coverings, they've got Irish-made furniture, suites, beds, mattresses, dining, flooring, slide robes and occasional furniture. Great prices and large selection now available at Breedon's Home Furnitures, Cooley-Maville.
Farmers know when it's time to get moving. Like when the alarm goes off first thing in the morning, they know it's time to move the herd in for milking. And when it comes to insurance, farmers are discovering why it's time for another move. With AXA Smart Farm Insurance, switching couldn't be easier. You don't have to fill out any long documents to join, so the process is as pain-free as possible. So, if you're paying more than you should be, ask yourself, is it time for a move? For a quote, search axa.ie/farm. AXA. Know you can. Terms and conditions apply. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
The groom goes free. The groom goes free. Yes, you heard it. The Groom's Room. Evolve Clothing, Letterkenny Retail Park. The groom goes free. Call in today. Terms and conditions apply.
Shrink your bill at Dunnes Stores this bank holiday weekend with 20% off wine and champagne. Pop a can of Pringles, now half price. Or stock the fridge with 20 and 24 can packs of Coca-Cola, Diet Coke and Coke Zero. Just €12 each. Then save at the till with our 5 off 25 grocery vouchers. Dunnes Stores. Always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next in-store grocery shop of €25 or more. Voucher excludes alcohol. Please drink sensibly.
Take It to the Limit. It's a celebration of the Eagles by Johnny Brady, Simon Casey, Nigel Connell and the Sheeran family. You can hear Take It to the Limit at the Millennium Forum Derry on Saturday, April 15th. Tickets from £28.50. Now on sale from the theatre box office or online from www.takeittothelimit.ie.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Councillor Michael McClafferty joins us on the line. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal. Morning, listeners.
You've been listening to the discussion on rail, and certainly you're based in an area where there's a lot of talk about greenway developments and the Burton Port Letterkenny Greenway, very, very much a live entity and going ahead. Do you believe that we will see rail return to Donegal, or is this a pipe dream?
It's a possibility, Donal, and into the future at some stage. When I say into the future, it's a possibility into years and years ahead, into late years ahead at this stage. Like, we're struggling at the minute to get a greenway done up here by Muckish to get it finished, which is going to, by the sounds of it, it's going to take years the way it's going. So, I mean, the actual fact of rail coming to Donegal or rail coming to Ireland as such is basically going to be a long, long way off anyway. And look, I'm not against the rail. I think if it did come, it would help. It would be an advantage. It would be another added tourism thing and so on. It would be good for medical reasons and so on. People that needed to travel that way and all that would be helpful, obviously. Not everybody should have the car, not everybody should have the planes when you're sick and so on. And it would be helpful that way, providing it was connecting to all the relevant towns and that type of thing. But, Donal, really, the health and safety is commanded here as well, big time here. For example, where I live down here outside Dunfanny, you're well aware of, the area that is, if you're going from the Letterkenny side into the Fanny, the first place you pass there, I suppose the first person that you pass, if you like, once you go past the old McElhaney's garage, now soon to be a brewery into the future, hopefully, is the next place to stop then is the Lake House. You go past the Lake House nursing home, you have a footpath there for maybe 100 yards or something, takes you on round anyway, roughly to where the old Port of Blah Hotel used to be before it was tunnelled years ago for a future development and so on. But then from the Port of Blah Hotel area, landmark, right on through Port of Blah, where there's probably upwards of 60, 70 houses there at the minute, built in the last 20 years, on the left-hand side, everybody's familiar with. On and then to Dunfanny town, you have no footpaths. Unfortunately, this stretch of road as well, which is N56, a number of people have lost their lives here as well down through the years and various situations, unfortunately for those and their families. But yet, Donal, people are trying there long before my time, going back 25, 30 years, when they seen this situation developing, and particularly when the Port of Blah Hotel was going good, the immediate need for a footpath. And this footpath still is not forthcoming. We were a delegation there in Dublin there, myself and fellow councillors, 12 of us all together, were up with the TAA there at the 8th of December lobbying for Portnablá as well as many other roads and various other ideas and so on around the place. We were told it couldn't happen because it's outside the speed limit. And it's the same situation there this morning with Jimmy Kavanagh, although I think he was trying for active travel.
Yes.
Like we were trying for active travel as well. But again, because it's outside the speed limit and our situation here in Kavanagh, they won't do it. This is ridiculous. Eamon Ryan is going to be out of, he'll either be in power or out of power in 18 months' time, as you alluded to yourself there a while ago, but it remains to be seen, obviously, either way. But the point is, they need to look at the health and safety end of it here first. What is more important, footpaths in Dunfanny, a footpath out by Woodland School there, or any other place that is asked for, that really don't, in all fairness, to the likes of Eamon Ryan being a Minister of Transport, all it would take, and I'm pretty sure, is a stroke of a pen and say, right, boys and girls, let that carry on. Instead of that, we're talking about rail that mightn't happen for the next 30 years or mightn't happen at all.
And the point you were making, Michael, is if we can't get it together to actually sort a footpath on a busy walking route between Portnablá and Dunfanaghy, what chance do we actually have of organising a full rail service linking Donegal and Letterkenny and Derry, or linking Letterkenny to Strabane and Portadown via Lifford? If we can't get a couple of miles of footpath, what chance do we have of getting a rail system?
Exactly, Donal. We have none because, for example, the rail, as far as I recall from memory, went off around here. Recall from history that is went off around here in the Falkari area around 68, 69. I believe the last train went, and that was the end of it. The end of it. Then Ian McGarvey would be better.
Yeah, I think it may have been. I have it in my head. It was 59. Was the last the rail services? I have 59 in my head for the rail services in Donegal, and I wasn't around myself in those days now, but I think it was in around about 59. But Michael, it's a point well made, and thank you very much indeed for making it. That's Councillor Michael McClafferty there. Now, let's go to Derry. You'll have heard there was 4 suspected pipe bombs discovered in the city cemetery in Derry. They were found there yesterday in the same area where clothes worn by participants in the parade on Monday, which led to some incidents between marchers and police. Clothes were discarded there and burnt. Joined on the line by Father Michael Canny. He's the Vicar General of the Diocese of Derry. Father Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
Father Michael, obviously the last thing we want to hear about bombs being discovered in the sacred precincts of a cemetery.
Well, Donal, this is an annual event every Easter Monday for so many years now. This event takes place, and I personally have now come to call it the annual commemoration of disrespect for our dead, as opposed to commemoration of the dead, because every year it ends up with something, of course, happening in the cemetery and the surrounds of the cemetery. And of course, this is a deliberate attempt by these people to lure in the police with a view to injuring them, or indeed maybe even killing them. And they're using the cemetery, which is a very special place in the hearts of all of us, and particularly around about the Easter time, when people go to put flowers on their loved one's grave, or for whatever reason. And these people, manipulate these young children to lure in the police with a view to kill them, and of course, or injure them. And obviously, the pipe bombs and the petrol bombs were part of that.
In terms of as you say, there are events each year, and in fairness, there are Republican commemorations take place, and they do take place respectfully, and the dead are remembered. But it does appear that some of the commemorations, particularly at some times, they do tend to be hijacked to make a contemporary political point, and to make that political point through the use of force.
Well, the reality is that this particular one on Easter Monday in the city cemetery in Derry here has always, for the last significant number of years, has all caused trouble. Now, there are events on Easter Sunday all over the country, and they pass off very peacefully, and they're done with great respect for the dead and remembering and commemoration, which is to be commended and supported. But this one is always with a view to police, with a view to cause a mayhem and to cause, and it doesn't promote. They try to use the opportunity to highlight some political cause. But of course, the reality is, all it is doing is just bringing the city, bringing the Cregan area into disrepute, into the headlines for the very wrong reason, and isn't furthering the cause of Irish unity one iota.
Have you at any point had a chance to have discussions yourself with the organisers of the Easter Monday event?
No, I personally haven't been involved with them for a long number of years now, but I know previous years that my colleague and others have been involved with them, and I think that maybe most right-thinking people say that they have made up their minds what to do, and they use all people who maybe go with well intent to negotiate, to try to get some organisation of good sense around the place. But I think that they use it, manipulate it just for the sake of publicity and to achieve this end. And I know last year and previous years, a lot of people were actively involved in all sorts of things right up to the wire, but at the same time, then all promises were broken on all sides. So it seems to be futile at this stage, but unfortunately, I suppose we still can't give up efforts, but they seem to want to use this opportunity to lure in police with a view to killing or maiming police. And of course, in the process, they have total disrespect for the fact that they're also maybe manipulating these children who also could get killed or badly injured with petrol bombs or pipe bombs.
And the reality is, given the pictures that we've seen and given the fact that young people, some of them no older than children, are involved, and several of those in the front line, as it were. I mean, the Good Friday Agreement was 10 years and more before they were born, so it isn't as though those young people grew up during Troubles and are responding to their experience of the Troubles, because, I mean, they were born in a very different era to the era that you were born in and worked in.
Yeah, well, these are, as we can see from the pictures on television screen and our newspapers, these are very young children, and that's why I say that these are obviously people who organise these events are using and manipulating these young children so as to lure in the police for something more sinister. So in actual fact, it is just, my mind, it is pure evil, because first of all, they're planning to kill or to maim or to injure and manipulating children. So it is certainly is a very evil intent from the word get-go.
You'd be hoping, I'm sure, for a community response to this. I mean, you'll be in regular contact with community leaders in the Cregan. Is there something that could be done on that level? I know there have been discussions at community level in the past, and you've said perhaps there hasn't always been good faith. Do you hold any hope that after another Easter Monday of incidents, as we've seen this year, that maybe discussions between the community and the parade organisers will maybe lead to some changes for next year?
Well, one lives in hope, but I suppose we live in hope and we die in despair. But the reality is that I think that down through the years there has been so much engagement from all sorts of sources and all sorts of people with these people, but it has never ended in anything other than chaos and mayhem. As a matter of fact, this year perhaps maybe was maybe, while it wasn't a good end, was maybe perhaps one of the better endings in a number of years, because the police didn't fall into their trap, and as soon as the first petrol bomb was thrown, the police made good their escape, and of course, I suppose to some extent frustrated their plans and their designs, which means then they had to abandon their bombs. So I suppose the police tactics, rather than falling into their trap, the police did the opposite, which I think is in fairness was good sense on their part.
And as well as that, the police,
from the point of view of the organisers, it was certainly an attempt to try to bring in police so as to engage with them.
And the police were making it clear from Thursday, Friday of last week that they believed this was going to happen. So they obviously did have intelligence, and based on their own past experience as well. That,
of course, these pipe bombs and this sort of petrol bombs that are required don't grow out of the ground or fall out of the sky all of a sudden. So they obviously had good intelligence to let them to know that this was about to happen, and they didn't fall into the trap. So, and I suspect that maybe it frustrated their plans, of the organisers to some extent. But nevertheless, the very fact that there was an intent there, I think we have to call it for what it is.
Father Michael Canny, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. That's Father Michael there, the Vicar General of the Diocese of Derry. It's 11 minutes to 11. We're going to take a short break. Back after these.
A public interest message from Donegal County Council. Become a museum detective at Donegal County Museum. Search for clues and discover more about the history of Donegal with the Museum Detective's Backpack. The backpack is free to borrow when you and your family visit the museum, and it contains a series of activities for children of all ages. Why not pop in for a visit over your Easter break and have fun exploring Donegal's past? Donegal County Museum is located on the High Road in Letterkenny, and admission is free. Telephone 074 912 4613. Email museum@donegalcoco.ie or find us on Facebook. Donegal County Council, supporting our communities and protecting our heritage.
For over 20 years, CarZone has been the trusted name in Ireland's motoring marketplace, bringing 1 million car buyers and sellers together every month. And now, buying or selling a car has never been easier on CarZone with expert tools and advice. Download the CarZone app or check out carzone.ie. CarZone, Ireland's trusted motoring marketplace.
Enjoy summer with Home Store and More. We have everything you need for garden living. Bring your garden to life with our great range of garden furniture. We've rat and corner sets, dinner sets and much more. And when it comes to barbecues, whether it's gas, charcoal or smoker, we've got what you need to cook up a storm. Also, there's fire pits, chimeneas and patio heaters, gazebos, solar lights, garden decor and much, much more. Visit us in store or shop online at homestoreandmore.ie. Make your garden your sanctuary. Home Store and More. A happy home.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Fly with Aer Lingus on their new daily service to London Heathrow and connect onwards to 80 plus destinations worldwide, including New York and Boston. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
And looking at the weather forecast from Met Éireann, and Met Éireann are telling us that the winds will continue to veer west to northwest in western parts this morning and into the afternoon. We'll see a spell of wet and increasingly windy weather sweeping eastwards across the region over the next hour or two. Some damaging gusts possible with those winds increasing strong and gusty with gales in coastal areas. The rain clearing eastwards later this afternoon and evening. We will see those strong winds persist even though the rain clears in the evening. It'll stay rather cool today, highs of just 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. As we know, US President Joe Biden is on the island. He's in Belfast at the moment. He's making a keynote speech at Belfast University today, and then over the next number of days he will carry out engagements in Dublin and in Mayo and in Louth. He'll not be in Donegal. There had been some hope that he might have been attracted to Donegal. We know a number of high-profile people, Congressman Brendan Boyle and others, were trying to make that happen, but sadly it didn't happen. Now, I've got two people on Zoom to have a discussion with this morning, and who better to speak to than our resident historian on the 9 till noon show, Dr. Joe Kelly. Joe, good morning to you.
Good Donal, good luck to good morning to yourself and all those in Highland Radio.
Imagine what, Joe. It's a pleasure as always. We know that Joe Biden has family connections in Louth and in Mayo, but how important do you believe his Irish connections are to them? Because we have this habit, whenever a US president comes, we always say, oh, there must be an election coming. He's trying to go for that big Irish American vote. I mean, we can be a bit cynical about this, but do you believe that there is a genuine wish to get back to Ireland on Joe Biden's part? We know it's not his first visit here.
Yeah, exactly. He was here as Vice President in 2016, June 2016. Look, as it goes, and most commentators would accept that, Joe Biden's Irishness has been very, very important to himself as an individual. It's not just as a political stepping stone for the Irish electorate in America, but actually his Irishness and his concept of who he is and his own self-identity is very much based on his Irishness. And he's talked about that throughout his whole political life. And in fact, some, lecturers and professors would argue that he's the most Irish American president there ever has been, even more Irish than John F. Kennedy, who got to be president by, family connections, etc. Joe went through the hard way, so to speak, and brought his Irishness with him, his determination. And, it's very interesting, the two very things that the people of Ireland, like his family left in 1851, the two very things that the poor people of Ireland left and emigrated, be it to America or anywhere in the world, were two things, the two F's, family and faith. And here he's coming back family-wise to his roots and also to his faith. He's visiting Knock, and his faith is something that, he's a Catholic president just in the same way that John F. Kennedy was. So, look, those two very important to him. And so I don't think he's been dishonest or disingenuous or trying to use it for political capital. He loves Ireland. He loves who he is because of his Irish ancestry. And that goes with the 32 other million Irish Americans that are over in America.
And speaking of faith, we're told that his great-great-great-grandfather sold the brick that built Kavanagh Cathedral, and the money from the sale of that brick paid the passage to America. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. His great-great-grandfather the passage was paid for by his father. That would be Joe Biden's great grandfather in 1851, and he sold, I think it was 27,000 bricks to build the cathedral in Ballina. And it was the sale of those bricks that paid the passage to bring them to America. And in fact, Joe's relations in Ballina, Joe Blewett is his name. He has actually built a stage outside the cathedral, or in the cathedral, sorry, so that Joe Biden can give a talk in the cathedral, tying it back to his own history. So that's back to the family and the faith. And in the same way in Louth, I think the Louth connection's a very strong connection as well. And that's his great grandfather was Owen Finnegan, and he emigrated from the Cooley Peninsula. And again, his aunt would have been very, very strong in her Irish and dislike of England, believe it or not. And if you read his biography, Promises to Keep, he has some very interesting analogies in which he describes how he grew up. For example, his mother was with him on holiday one time, and she found out that the Queen was actually Queen Elizabeth II slept in the room that she was given, and she refused to sleep there. And then he mentions as well in the same book that it was unfortunate that he has an English name. His father was English. Yeah. That he's so proud of his Irish, and his aunt said, "Look, I know your daddy has an Englishman, but you know something, he's still a good man." Yeah. So like you could see kind of some of the Irish anti-English sentiment growing through there. But look, he's here obviously on a personal capacity. There's no doubt about that, and I think this is a highlight for himself in his own life. But he's also here in a political capacity. There's a serious business to be done here as well politically.
As you've said, the Louth connections and the Mayo connections, a big search for Donegal connections was made in recent weeks, and the Donegal connection inevitably has been found. So I'd like to say we also have with us on Zoom this morning Katie Beelan, who's a research manager with the Irish Family History Centre. Katie, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
Katie, you have found evidence that there is indeed a Donegal connection with Joe Biden. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, there is. It's a really strong and very interesting connection, actually, and it was a total surprise to us. So this is on the president's maternal line as well, and this is his Scanlon family. So the president's, if you can keep track of all this, because he has a lot of Irish ancestry, but it's his second great-grandfather was a man called, second great-grandmother was a woman called Catherine Scanlon, and her father was Anthony Scanlon. So we're right back at the start of the 1800s now. And he was a Mayo man himself, but he worked in the Irish Coast Guard. So because of that, he was based all over Ireland. And a huge portion of his career, he was based in Donegal. And this would have been the very start of the Irish Coast Guard. So we're talking 1820s, 1830s, really different to what we would see it as now. And so the president's great-great-great-uncle was actually born in one of the Coast Guard houses in Donegal. Now, you know, to be discovered which one yet, because there were, I think, 11 contemporary houses. But this was a very important part of the country. As a Coast Guard, if you were stationed in Donegal, that was really, you'd made it. And this was, the Coast Guard had been set up in England since, I think, 1805. But these were the first years of the Coast Guard in Ireland. So to be trusted in an area where you were stopping smugglers coming up from the north, you were protecting shipwrecks, you know, you were saving people's lives at sea. So the president's ancestors they would have been very important people in the Donegal area, and they would have known everybody, you know, around where they lived, because this was, as you said, the weather today, you know, typical of this. The winds would be battering in. That would have been an everyday 24-hour job. And we're talking boats in the 1820s, so slightly more difficult than now. You know, you don't have an engine, you don't have electric lights, you're going out with your torch and you're hoping that you can fight off effectively the pirates. So it's a very strong connection. We know that the family were there for a number of years because they were settled in the house. The children were born there, and then they eventually emigrated to the States. So we found your connection. Yeah.
And I believe that evidence of that's going to be presented to Joe Biden over the course of his visit. He's going to be appraised of those particular links.
He is indeed, yeah. We're gonna privately present the information to the president with a few extra bits and pieces, so that you know, if he ever wants to dig into it more, he can certainly go and check it out himself. There's a lot that we're, you know, going to discuss publicly, but there's a few pieces we want to save for the president. Yeah.
Well, Joe Kelly, that's interesting news. Were you aware that the Donegal connection was so stark as far as Joe Biden was concerned?
Wasn't aware at all, and congratulations on that bit of research. It's amazing. Even to go back that far in the Coast Guard, very, very interesting. And again, It just shows you how diverse our own history is, and the fact that we're able to connect all these places, Mayo, Louth, Donegal. And it says a lot about what's available in our roots. This is back to understanding who we are. And we're very, very small island, but have a massive, massive political impact worldwide. So well done for that. Yeah.
Now, Katie and Joe, I'm going to ask you both just to stay with us for a moment. I'm going to mute your volume because it's 11 o'clock.
Shop LK at Brian McCormick Sports and Leisure Main Street, Letterkenny. All the kids are back playing football with longer days and shorter nights. Kids football boots from only €25, available in Velcro or lace. Check our new range of kids boots, shorts, socks and accessories. Visit our new club room with quarter zips, t-shirts and matching bottoms for your favourite local club. Click on Teamwear at bmcsports.ie for more details.
Donegal Denture Clinic, Letterkenny. Denture problems? We can help. At Donegal Denture Clinic, we customise, personalise and tailor your dentures to suit you. Call us for a free consultation on 91 25 25 3. Find us at Ballyrain, Letterkenny, beside Rossin College. Medical cards welcome. For all your denture needs, call Donegal Denture Clinic on 91 25 25 3. Online at donegaldentureclinic.ie.
I've been surfing all morning at FlemingLTD.com to find out about Fleming doors, Fleming steel and Fleming coatings and their full range of products. So come surfing with me at FlemingLTD.com. Fleming 91 48 234.
It's 2 minutes past 11 o'clock, and with apologies for the delay, we say good morning to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. An Inishowen councillor has head out after a number of people were captured on CCTV footage illegally dumping behind a supermarket. 10 waste bags in total were deposited into bins behind the store in Muff in recent days. Gardaí and Donegal County Council have been notified of the incident. Councillor Terry Crossan called the act unacceptable and opportunistic. Gaherdag of the Letterkenny Municipal District is calling for further action to be taken to resolve ongoing traffic issues in Letterkenny. It follows a meeting having to be delayed after multiple members got stuck in traffic en route yesterday. Councillor Donal Mandy Kelly says businesses are suffering as a result of chronic congestion on Letterkenny roads. Donegal Into Rep Mary T. Sweeney has called the latest figure of 8,500 legal abortions performed last year a tragedy for the Irish people. It's reported that 85% of those who availed of an abortion did so for socio-economic reasons. She says there are supports in place for mothers in crisis. A group of doctors say they're worried about the danger of cannabis is being ignored. It says around 22,000 people are addicted to the drug here, and it's a bigger issue for younger people than alcohol. A group of doctors have published a letter in the Irish Times saying legalising the drug isn't the answer. 593 people are waiting for beds in Irish hospitals this morning. That's according to the latest figures from the IMNO. 447 patients are in emergency departments, while 146 are in wards. 30 patients are currently waiting for a bed in Letterkenny University Hospital, 3 in the emergency department and 17 in wards elsewhere. And finally, Ukraine's president has condemned the execution of a Ukrainian prisoner of war by Russian soldiers. A video of the murder has emerged on Russian social media channels, but it's not clear when it was filmed. Volodymyr Zelensky says occupying soldiers have executed thousands of prisoners. That's all for now. We'll be back again with the latest news headlines at 12 o'clock. And until then, good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Caoimhe de Barra from Trócaire, urging you to return your Trócaire box donation. Your support will bring emergency food baskets, urgent medical care and fresh safe water to families in Somalia, families who have lost everything in the worst drought in the country's history. Your help can make all the difference. Visit trócaire.org or call 1800 408 408. You see, it's not just a box, it's a lifeline. Trócaire, together for a just world.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Welcome to the third hour of the programme this morning. We have on Zoom our historian, Dr. Joe Kelly, and also Kelly Beelan, who's a research manager with the Irish Family History Centre. Just before the break, Kelly was briefing us on President Joe Biden's ancestral links to Donegal. We've discovered his great-great-great-grandfather was working with the Coast Guard in Donegal and was very involved in the establishment of Coast Guard indeed in Ireland. Kelly, I take it the research is going to continue and we're going to be hearing more about these links in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, we've been working on the president's ancestry actively since 2016, and there's always new information becoming available. As you said, Joe, it's amazing how many records we have a hold of. And every day there's new records being made available to us online. So with that, we're constantly developing the president's Irish ancestry. We do have a few things up our sleeve, like I said, that we're going to present to the president privately, but we do have a lot that we want to share with everyone, now that he's here. So there are more connections, not only the Donegal connections, we have more Mayo connections, we have a new Galway connection. The president is really, as you said earlier, Joe, one of the most Irish presidents that we have, one of the most Irish American presidents. So we have a lot more to share beyond what's already out there publicly.
Kelly, thank you very much indeed for sharing all that with us this morning. It's absolutely fascinating to hear that. And I know Brendan Boyle, the congressman, was trying to get Joe Biden to come to Donegal. And a lot of people now are saying, if only we'd known all this 6 months ago, perhaps he might have been a bit more successful. But who knows? Yeah, absolutely. Who knows what's going to happen for the next one? Kelly, thank you very much indeed. We're going to let you get back to your research and all the best with it. You've been doing phenomenal work so far, and congratulations to you and your colleagues. Going back to you, Joe Kelly, in terms of the political impact of this visit, obviously we can't ignore the inactivity at Stormont. We can't ignore the whole executive and assembly debate that's going on at the moment. How much of an impact do you, Joe Kelly, believe that Joe Biden's visit is going to have?
Look, we're a political vacuum. We know that nationally and internationally. I think Biden's going to try to give it a little nudge, and he has to be very careful and tempered with how he proceeds with that, because the unionists have more or less said that the Windsor framework isn't suitable for them or isn't what they require, and yet it gives the 6 counties in Northern Ireland the best side of the EU and also of Brexit. It's an amazing deal in that sense that economically they can benefit both ways. And so how he achieves that, I'm not sure. But the fact that Richie Sunak was there meeting him, and it was to Belfast that he went first, is quite significant, I think. And maybe what they're trying to do from a starting point is to try to undo the block that Boris Johnson had put there. There is no doubt that Boris Johnson damaged the Good Friday process quite a considerable amount. And we have a different person in Richie Sunak, thank God. And hopefully the push that is required, I'm sure Biden will be not just giving them moral support and political support, but will be saying to look at from an investment point of view, from the international funds that are available, that this is a good deal for the peace in Ireland and in the 6 counties. And one mustn't forget, Bill Clinton, as far as I know, is here as well. What Bill Clinton has done as president, he came here twice to Ireland, and how he, in the last, the minutes before the Good Friday Agreement, encouraging them to sign up to this, that this has been very much influenced by American presidents. The fact that he had sent George Mitchell back in 1998, the fact that John Kennedy III now, who'd be the grandnephew of JFK, is the envoy from Biden's administration to Northern Ireland. I mean, I think that's terribly, terribly important. But again, he'll find it difficult to tread that with the unionist community and how to bring them on board. But the political vacuum has to be resolved, and resolved fairly soon, because we see, you've been carrying it in your news, the availability of armaments and the finding of pipe bombs and things like that. Where there's a vacuum, there's a danger. And the Biden administration know that, the Irish government know that, the English government know that. And the fact that he hasn't gone to Stormont says a terrible lot. He's not willing to go to an empty building where political process isn't happening. I think that's the message that he will be trying to get across. Look, we have to get this over the line. We have to get back into power sharing. And when he talks about being an Irish American, he doesn't define that as 26 counties. Irish America is 32 counties. And he's made that very clear by his fact that he visited Northern Ireland first, that it was at the invitation of Richie Sunak that he arrived first in Ireland, in Belfast. I think that's very significant. And I think it's very humble of the Irish government to stand back and allow that to happen on the island of Ireland.
Yeah.
Knowing that he would come down south to meet, Michael D. Higgins and speak to the houses of the Oireachtas and so forth here in the 26 counties.
As you said, the opportunity to address Stormont not on the table because of an activity there. However, Joe Biden will tomorrow afternoon address the joint houses of the Oireachtas, the Dáil and Shannon. How significant is that address going to be?
Well, it's John F. Kennedy did it in 1963, and then Ronald Reagan in 1984, and then Bill Clinton with the peace process in 1995. It'll be very interesting to see what he has to say. I have no doubt that he will talk about his own sense of Irishness, but he'll also maybe lay down a view of, look, where do we have to go? It's not good enough to say this is who we are. It's where we want to get to. And one must remember he's 80 and Michael D. Higgins is 81. These are elder men, and they realise that, look, they've lived a lot of life, and maybe what they'll try to bring, what Joe Biden will try to bring is a vision of the future, for the future of everybody on this island, a shared Ireland for everybody, and that we must work towards that. So I think it'll be very interesting. I'm not sure what he exactly is going to say, but I do imagine that he will be encouraging both North and South and governments both in Ireland and England to work towards bringing back the Stormont, bringing back peace, and ensuring that there's no political vacuum. I have no doubt about that. But from a tourism point of view, it's going to be amazing. I mean, you couldn't buy in America the advertising on news. You couldn't buy all that. And so from that point of view, our Irish Americanness is very, very important at this moment. And I think he's the 7th president now to have come to Ireland. And probably as Kayleigh was saying, and what I'd said previously too, that he's probably the most Irish American. She would know that better than I with her genealogy studies and her understanding of that. So look, it's a great day to be Irish. In that sense, it's a great day for Irish America. And please God, it'll be a legacy that he will leave that will build on the peace process that Bill Clinton and others like Bertie Ahern and David Trimble and John Hume and others had tried, and Jerry Adams had tried to secure, and Tony Blair as well. One mustn't forget all the work that has been done to this point and to build on that. You see, we build a bridge in peace, but we must use the bridge. Yeah. There's no point in building the bridge and not using it. And that's the thing I hope that he gets us to understand, that we must all use this bridge of peace that has been built for future generations.
Dr. Joe Kelly, a good point to end on. Thank you very much indeed. As always, our historian there, Dr. Joe Kelly, and thanks indeed, of course, to Kayleigh as well from the Irish Genealogy Research Centre. Wonderful to hear about those Donegal links on the Biden side, and we look forward to exploring those more and more as time goes on. Joe and Kayleigh, thank you very much indeed. Just a few of your comments before we go to a break. Caller says, all motorways should be designed with rail alongside them. We need to look forward. It's just a matter of time before Letterkenny is twice the size of what it is at the moment. Let's take action now instead of waiting until it's too built up to do anything. And that was one of the issues that was raised by some of the councillors yesterday, actually. They were saying at the meeting that the problem with in the town centre is you cannot do anything too much new in the town centre, so you're going to have to be doing your work on the outskirts to try and ease the traffic congestion. Everyone sending in comments saying something needs to be done. Quite what that something is, of course, this is the big question, as always is the case. Caller says, traffic starting toward the shopping centre roundabout toward the new Duns. Road markings and roundabouts are confusing as it is. They lead to frustrated and angry drivers. We need better road markings and signage for this route, otherwise there may be serious collisions. With regards to the Irish language, Mary says, when I was at school everything was taught through Irish, even English. If a teacher asked a question in English, we answered in Irish. We weren't allowed to speak English during playtime. Shit on scale. Another Anne says we need to place much more emphasis on the spoken word. And Donal says the life of a language depends on its use. 100 years after the British withdrew from this part of the island, we're now more than ever British American in our culture than we were before. With the influx of immigrants and other languages over the past few years, that'll help develop a multicultural, multilingual society, and perhaps may inspire Irish people to have more pride in their own culture and language. And that is a very, very interesting point. As we become more multicultural as a society, will we maybe get a better appreciation of our own culture that we have to an extent left behind. And hopefully that will be the situation. Now it's time for a break, and after the break it'll be our Wellness Wednesday discussion. April is Autism Awareness Month. We'll be discussing autism assistance dogs with our guest after this short break.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
There's never been a better time to go full Lidl. Let's hear it from our customers.
It's great value for money, and it's first and foremost.
Anyone that has a big family, they should be shopping in Lidl, without a doubt. Do you have a holiday at the end of the year?
Go on, go full Lidl today.
The CFC Interiors Dairy Stock Disposal Sale is now on. Due to overstock, an incredible £1.5 million worth of stock must go. Don't miss our highest ever discount on selected ranges across all departments. The Stock Disposal Sale at CFC Interiors Dairy, Cookstown and Abbey Centre. Sale now on.
Shop LK at Brian McCormick Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. New, fresh colours in women's sportswear from Nike and Under Armour. Get that new look with some bright colours. Quarter zips with t-shirts and fitness bottoms. Match it up with some new arrivals in our footwear for women. Brooks, Hoka and On Running gives you a unique comfort sensation. View our new arrivals. Click on bmcsports.ie for your free delivery.
If you're starting a new business in 2023, let BizPrint help with all your printing needs. Logo design, invoice books, business cards and promotional products. Call BizPrint in Letterkenny today on 91777955 or visit bizprint.ie.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
Time is 16 minutes past 11 o'clock. Now, as we say, this is Autism Awareness Month. There'll be a lot of discussion on issues pertaining to autism. And what we want to discuss this morning is the use of assistance dogs. And we all know people who have autism that use assistance dogs, and they have been getting great service from those dogs. And those dogs have, in many cases, I think, helped to enrich and improve the lives of people with autism beyond measure. Joined on Zoom this morning by Elaine Cannon, who is the Breeding and Acquisition Coordinator with Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland. Elaine, good morning.
Good morning, Donal.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show this morning. And it's something we've seen more and more, the rise in the use of service dogs. And I think most of us will know somebody who has an assistance dog and whose life has been hugely enriched by it.
Yeah, you know, the families that we work with would say that the dog has had a huge impact on their family. I mean, primarily the dogs are used for safety. So the child is attached to the dog via a belt and onto the dog's harness. So a lot of the children that would qualify, I suppose, to have assistance dogs would display bolting behaviour, and they would have no concept of danger. So therefore they would be having to be strapped into buggies, or, you know, their parents holding their hand tightly. And children just don't want that after a particular age. So the assistance dogs gives the children that sense of independence and freedom, but also safety. So it helps lower those anxiety levels, not only for the child, but for the parents as well. So they tend to help the whole family.
And as well as that practical, safety element of what the dog does, the dog also, in many cases, I suspect, gives the child a focus for emotion, that an emotional bond does build up between child and dog, so that the dog is more than, as you say, first and foremost, the dog is there for safety, but the dog also becomes, in every sense, emotional as well as safe support.
Yeah, the dog has no expectations of the child, so the dog doesn't seek out eye contact from the child. The child can fully relax with the dog, and the dog can help them just develop coping mechanisms, I suppose, to deal with that stress as well.
And it's interesting the way you phrase that, because maybe that's part of the issue, that when people make contact with someone with autism, perhaps we're looking for the eye contact, perhaps we're looking for a response, perhaps we don't know what response to expect, and perhaps we're on our guard as a result of that. And maybe because we're on our guard, there is a tension comes from us, and that tension comes across, and that tension is felt by the other person, and the conversation and the interaction becomes awkward. As you say, with the dog is just there, the dog is just happy, and it does allow a more natural bond to grow.
It does, and as well, like the child can get a lot from the dog in sensory terms. So just stroking the dog, patting the dog, feeling like the physical weight of the dog against them can be very calming and soothing, and just very reassuring for the child as well.
There's a lot of research goes on, and I'm sure, and I know you have links with various colleges and universities as well. So, I mean, I'm sure there is research going on to look at the impact that assistance dogs are having, and there's no doubt in my mind that the research is coming across, with the answer that the impact is very positive.
Oh yeah, like research studies have been done. I think there's more underway, and they have proven, that the dogs do have a measurable impact both on the child and on the whole family as well. Like that can't be underestimated, because it can be stressful, living with a child with additional needs. So the dog can help the whole family.
You've been doing a lot of work with students in universities and colleges, making them more aware of autism and the dogs as well. How important is that initiative to get out there to the colleges, to the educational institutions?
Yeah, so I suppose we just don't provide assistance dogs. We're also into raising awareness of autism and autism inclusion. So we launched the Foilta campaign a few weeks ago, and one of our great volunteers, Niall from the Roadstown Park Hotel in Cork, and our fundraising manager, Jacob, have been out and about touring the country, visiting colleges and working just not with hospitality students, but all students. And just because what Niall noticed in his hotel was that quite often guests and staff members wouldn't know how to interact with the family or the child with autism, or they were just lacking some basic awareness. So we're hoping to try and spread that and do things like, promote signage, have autism awareness champions on staff in hotels and things like that. Just get the message out there.
There's also, and we've all become used to seeing the notices, no dogs except for guide dogs. Now that's obviously being expanded more and more to no dogs except for guide dogs and service dogs. But what's the legal situation with regards to public buildings, be they buildings in public ownership, such as council offices or libraries or theatres or whatever, or be they private businesses such as hotels, bars, restaurants, whatever. But what is the legal situation of a service dog? Do you have a right to bring a service dog into a building?
Yeah, so I suppose our organisation and organisations like Irish Guide Dogs would be accredited, so internationally accredited by Assistance Dogs International. And for that, we have to go through very exhaustive accreditation process every few years. So organisations that train dogs for children with autism and blind people who are accredited by the AGI have full public access rights to, so the kids can go everywhere.
Yeah. So effectively, it is illegal for an accredited dog, an accredited trained dog. It's illegal for that dog to be turned away.
Yeah, I know there have been court cases in the past, particularly with guide dogs, where they've been stopped and they've gone through the courts and there's been fines given out.
How important is it then, and as you said, the awareness in colleges and so on, and when you're briefing people in colleges, the students in colleges today are presumably the managers and the front of house staff of tomorrow. So from that point of view, you're getting them early. How important is it that there is a national awareness campaign just to gently remind people in front of house positions in buildings across the country to remind them of those legal responsibilities?
Well, it is great because if you're out with your child and your assistance dog and you go somewhere and you're being questioned and maybe you're being asked to leave, that's really a very unpleasant situation to be in, to say the least. And if staff just have that information, then those situations don't occur. All our families as well, they have ID cards to show that their dog is a member of our organisation. Unfortunately, there are people out there who try and bring their pet dogs into those situations. And I think they do more harm than good for the official accredited assistance dogs, but they will always be wearing their jackets. They'll always have their ID cards. So they're pretty easy to spot and recognise.
And as well, the jackets is an interesting one because I've heard discussions before on should an ordinary member of the public interact with a service dog, particularly a service dog who is on duty to coin a phrase, because you hear very often that no, if a dog is on duty, you shouldn't pet it, you shouldn't in any way distract it. It's got a job to do. It's if it's doing a professional job, it's doing it well, and we should really be stepping back and letting it do that. What are the protocols with regards to an ordinary member of the public interacting with a service dog?
So definitely, I would always say, never just, put your hand out and go to pet the dog, or you'll have some people that would start whistling at the dog when you're walking past to get its attention. So never distract the dog from its work. But, quite often the families will welcome people coming up to chat to them. So always just ask first. Like, having the dog can be an icebreaker for the child, and, seeing that interaction with other people and even other children is great. The families love to see that. But just ask first is the rule of thumb.
Yeah. Elaine, any final words? Autism Awareness Month. What should we be? If you had one message to say to people, look, this is what we want you to be aware of, what would that message be?
I would say the message to be aware of is just go and gain some understanding. You can do things like check out our website, autismassistancedogsireland.ie. We've loads of information on there. Our waiting list. So if families are out there might be families listening who are thinking, I'd love an assistance dog for my child. So our waiting list is opening. We open our waiting list once a year, and we're usually overwhelmed with the number of applications. So from the 24th of April, there'll be a button on our homepage where people can register for the information sessions. They learn all they need to learn there about applying for a dog and to find out if their child meets the criteria. So I'd say, go check out our website to get more information.
Elaine, thank you very much indeed. Elaine Cannon is the Breeding and Acquisition Coordinator with Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Elaine, and all the best with the ongoing work. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That's Elaine there speaking to us from Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland. Now we're going to change tack completely. It's, as you know, it is the Teachers' Conference season. Yesterday we spoke to Joanne Irwin from the TUI, and today let's speak to another Donegal delegate who is at a meeting down south, this time in Killarney. Anya McGinley is the Central Executive Committee representative for Donegal and Leitrim with the INTO. Anya, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal. Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure. The vacancy crisis and the recruitment and retention crisis in the secondary sector we discussed yesterday with Joanne, I take it that's also a very real issue for INTO as well?
It is certainly, particularly with regards to we're trying to keep teachers in the system. The workload issue has come up time and time again, and the INTO actually published a survey on workload earlier this year. And then we also have the difficulty with the substitution crisis and trying to get teachers to cover for approved teacher absences. So that was a motion that was adopted yesterday at our Congress, calling for full substitute cover for all teacher approved absences. And really, in essence, the purpose of that motion is to ensure that when teachers are off and they're not able to attend the workplace, that the children will be taught by a fully qualified teacher.
Yeah. Workload for teachers and class size, it's one of those problems that's always going to be there to a certain extent. Still very much a live issue for discussion and debate.
It absolutely is. The workload issue, as I said just there briefly, the INTO published a report on the workload challenges that face teachers and school leaders. And really, it was alarming, the insights that were highlighted in that report. It found that 9 out of 10 primary teachers are struggling with workload that's literally bursting at the seams. We're trying to keep up with different initiatives that are being foisted upon our schools. And certainly we want to do the very best for our children. But it's the lack of, I suppose, of support for the system whereby everything lands at the door of the principal. But we're trying to ensure that there's post responsibility in our schools so that those issues can be dealt with, and there's a bit of distributed leadership there, because that's a very important issue. And the report also highlighted that principals are working an additional 600 hours a year outside of school time, and there's just so much paperwork with really unrealistic expectations. And an overloaded curriculum, and we're welcoming a new curriculum that's coming into place. But certainly we're trying to get the workload issue experienced by teachers and school leaders reduced, and that school leadership will be given teams to be able to implement that new curriculum.
A lot of the discussion, obviously, over the past number of years about pay, and there was the discussion on the reinstatement of the pay that was lost in the wake of 2009 and the financial crisis then. But very much now the discussion is inflation, the high level of inflation. And at the very least, teachers' unions, and I know indeed John Boyle of the INTO was quoted as saying this earlier this week, that pay rises probably in the region of 10 to 15% would be necessary in realistic terms to actually combat inflation.
This is again the pay issue that we've brought to Congress this year and was unanimously adopted by our delegates. We have a lack of pay structures that will match inflation. We are trying to bring it now to the Public Services Committee of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions to prioritise a general increase in salaries for teachers to protect their incomes and the cost of rising living costs. The INTO members have called on the executive, of which I'm a member, to establish a task force in October on how to construct a 20-point pay scale for the pre-2011 entrants, because that's a significant issue for them. And then just that we were saying that the approach that we take must address the teacher allowances, including the allowances that have not been sanctioned for new beneficiaries since February 2012.
Obviously, a lengthy discussion to be undergone in the coming months. Now, we will have the public pay agreement up for renegotiation toward the end of this year. I mean, would you be anticipating a difficult and potentially lengthy negotiation?
Oh, I have no doubt at all that the negotiations will be difficult and they will be lengthy, Donal. You're absolutely right, because we have a number of asks from our Congress delegates today. And of course, those asks over the last 3 days, and of those asks actually become, when the motions are passed to Congress, it becomes INTO policy. So we have to ensure that they are part of the next pay agreement, and I'm sure that those talks will be resuming shortly, because the Building Momentum pay agreement that we're currently covered by will complete by the end of this year.
I know too, pensions have been an issue at conference, and pension awareness is something that you, as an executive, you and your colleagues have been very anxious to get discussed and get teachers fully appraised of the situation with regards to pensions and planning for the future. Absolutely.
We've noted really the substantial deterioration in pension benefits for teachers who have entered the service since January 2013. The value of public service pensions has substantially reduced as a result of those changes over the last probably 20 years, really. The introduction of a career average pension scheme across the sector means that teachers entering the profession since 2013 can expect a much smaller pension than those who started before then. So what INTO are looking to do now is to have a pension awareness campaign focused on the deficiencies of that single pension scheme, so that teachers can plan for the future, plan for their retirement. But I suppose the earlier they start planning for that, the better prepared they'd be.
Finally, Anya, you will have had quite a lot of members in schools across the country where building projects were delayed. We know Gaelscoil na Gara Moistri in Donegal Town in particular, in this neck of the woods, but schools right across the country were facing uncertain futures. Now, that issue, it seems, was resolved last week, and it now seems to be all systems go, and that sort of blockade by the Department of Public Expenditure has been taken off. It must have been a relief to you that was taken off before Congress, because I'm sure if it hadn't been, it would have been another issue that would have been, I suspect, a very live one during Congress this year.
It certainly would have. There were 58 building projects in total that were deferred, and as you mentioned there, the Gaelscoil in Donegal Town was one of those. I was with them on their protest last week, the week before last, and I spoke with some of the teachers there. The INTO made representations to the department to encourage the lifting of that ban to go forward, or the lifting of the ban so that those building projects could go forward. We had this disappointment time and time again. The situation should never have happened. It was a very stressful couple of weeks for the schools involved. And as I say, because of INTO intervention, I suppose that ban has been lifted. But as you said, it certainly would have been an issue that came up in Congress. Everybody deserves to be working in a safe and secure environment, and I'm glad now that those school projects can continue.
Anya, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. That's Anya McGinley there, the Central Executive Committee representative for Donegal and Leitrim with INTO. And I think your time in Killarney is pretty much coming to an end in the next day or two, so enjoy the rest of it and safe journey home.
Thank you very much, Donal. Take care.
You too. Anya, thank you very much indeed. That's Anya there speaking to us from Killarney. Let's take a short break. Back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Preparing for a special occasion? Sorrento Shoes has the finishing touch. Shoes and bags in pastel shades, bling or classic neutrals. Sorrento Shoes. Available in all leading shoe stores.
Visit the Inishowen Co-op Home Build event at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana on Saturday, April 15th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet the suppliers for expert advice on all your home build needs. Mica support available on the day. See Facebook for more details.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. The Lotto jackpot is an estimated €4.2 million. Play responsibly in store, in app, or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Super Value makes saving money as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. We match Aldi on the products you love. 2. Cracking Easter special offers like Super Value Fresh Irish Lamb Leg, now half price. Super Value Signature Taste Breakfast Deal, only $5.50. And 3. Money off vouchers every week on the app. So follow the 1, 2, 3 and save money at Super Value.
New this week in Home Store and More. All wood-burning fire pits and pizza ovens are all half price. But better hurry, because when all the half-price wood-burning fire pits and pizza ovens are gone, they're gone. Also, all kitchen table linen and all garden water features are still half price. But when all the half-price kitchen table linen and all the half-price garden water features are gone, they're definitely gone. Drop by your local Home Store and More, or visit us online at homestoreandmore.ie. New store now open in Arcadia Retail Park, Athlone. Home Store and More. A happy home.
And you're welcome back to the 9 till noon show. It's Donal Kavanagh on the programme for the moment, and it's a Thursday. It's not a Thursday. It's a Wednesday. I will get the grips. I swear I will get to grips with this eventually. It's a Wednesday. It's 24 minutes to noon, and it means it's time for this.
Business Matters in association with the ATU Donegal Faculty of Business. Are you a senior manager in the private sector looking to reinforce your leadership skills? ATU are offering a Level 9 Executive MBS in Leadership and Innovation based around action learning starting late April. Take the next step in your career and contact the Exec Ed Coordinator on 9186206 today or email donald.hannigan@atu.ie.
Joined in studio by Kieran O'Donnell for this week's Business Matters. Kieran, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal.
Great to speak to you as always. A lot to get through and some very interesting interviews actually from the podcast, which we will get to in a moment. But looking at some of the business stories that have been making headlines around Donegal and the Northwest, and we start with the thatch repair scheme.
Yes, Donal, applications are now being taken for the local thatch repair scheme that's being funded by Donegal County Council and the Heritage Council. This year's grant scheme consists of 2 strands and funding is ranging from €3,000 to €15,000. Deadline for applications will close on Friday, April 21st at 12 noon. So check out Donegal County Council's social media platforms for more details on it.
And that is an interesting one and an important one, because if you have a thatched roof, I mean, you know, you can't just leave it sit there, because particularly when you have weather like we have out there now at the moment, that really brings it home to us how important it is to get good maintenance on those. So hopefully anyone who does have thatch will be able to avail of that particular grant. An important event coming up in Carndonagh for the local business community there.
Yes, Donal, the first Carndonagh Business and Community Awards Gala is taking place at the Ballyliffin Lodge and Spa on Saturday, May the 6th. There are 8 different categories, and voting closes at midnight on Sunday, April 23rd, and MC on the night will be our own Jimmy Stafford.
The Community Monuments Fund is one that we've been hearing a little about, and a number of local groups have benefited.
Yeah, quite a significant amount. Almost €400,000 has been awarded to Donegal community groups under the Community Monuments Fund. 7 projects in the county will share a total of €384,000. The largest allocation of €103,000 has been earmarked for Killatee Church and Graveyard, while €99,000 is going to Ramahoy Church and Graveyard.
Donegal ETB always to the forefront in helping with business development in the region, and a new business and administration course that may be of interest to some of our listeners.
Yes, Donal, Donegal ETB's Further Education and Training Service has developed a new business and administration course. Participants will learn about information management, event coordination and implementing procedures and systems. So, along with a 6-week placement with Optum Ireland and Letterkenny, this city and Guilds level 3 course means those who complete the course will be employment ready in 22 weeks. This programme is commencing on Monday, April 24th, and will run through until September the 22nd. So check out Donegal ETB's socials for more on that, Donal.
Now, a business in Monaghan has been awarded by the Small Firms Association's National Small Business Awards, but the owner of the business might be known in Donegal for a slightly different reason.
Very much so. That's why I included it. Yeah, Moffat Automated Storage Limited has been named as the overall national winner, as you say. So the Monaghan firm was founded by Sam Moffat in 2017 and now employs 28 people. So Sam Moffat will be well known in this part of the world, winning Donegal International Rally in 2013 and 2019, and his brother Josh is actually the defending champion. So along with winning the overall award, Sam Moffat's company also picked up the manufacturing and innovator category prizes at the award ceremony. So well done to him.
Indeed, congratulations to Sam. And I suppose for people who follow the rally, I mean, did you know that Sam Moffat was, a very successful entrepreneur in that way? Let's look at the podcast and some very, very interesting discussions on the podcast this week.
Yes, Donal, on this week's show, I will be talking to Letterkenny-based graphic designer and photographer Stevie Toy and the owner of Ard's Coffee Tree in Ard's Forest Park, Patrick Stewart. After graduating from Letterkenny IT, Stevie Toy worked as a graphic designer for a number of local newspapers and moved to Brown's Printers in Letterkenny before setting up on his own. He covered his first wedding as a paid photographer in 2017, and back in February he was named Irish Wedding Photographer of the Year for 2023. In this clip, Stevie speaks about the benefit of social media platforms when it comes to showcasing his work.
Especially in a business that's primarily image based, it is, and it's something that I need to push more, to be honest with you, because I get wrapped up in my work and I forget I didn't post anything in 3 days, and it's crucial to be doing it. I've any amount of content to put up there, but it's just getting the time to do it and getting it up. But I do have to schedule it in. I really have to push it more, because we have some images there that are beautiful photos. Like this, I should showcase them more than I do.
Is it hard to imagine a business world now without social media?
I would say it's impossible. Everything's social media now. Like, I have a website which I'm getting a new website rebuilt now in the next few weeks. But I would say 8 or 9 of my bookings out of 10 come from Facebook and Instagram.
Now, that will be music to the ears of our bosses here, actually, because there is a huge emphasis on Highland Radio, on social media, and on promotion, and on reminding us that we are effectively a multimedia digital platform now. We're not just a radio station, and we go far beyond radio waves. And I suppose what Stevie there is saying is exactly that. I mean, if you're going to promote yourself, word of mouth is great. The ads in the paper are great. Ads on radio are great. But you've got to do more now. You've got to get right out there on social media.
Yeah, and for him to say 8 or 9 out of his 10 bookings come through social media as proof positive of exactly what you were saying, Donal. And I suppose it's another reminder of how much the world we live in has changed, and how much change there is, and how we get our information.
Your next guest is Patrick Stewart. Sadly not the Patrick Stewart we would know from Star Trek Generations and so on and so forth. But no, this is Patrick Stewart from Ard's Coffee Tree in Ard's Forest
Park. A local man. Patrick Stewart opened Ard's Coffee Tree in Ard's Forest Park along with his wife Karen in 2017. The lockdowns in 2020 saw a notable rise in the number of visitors to Ard's Forest Park, and that increase held firm in 2021 and 2022. Much of Ard's Coffee Tree stock is sourced locally, with its full range of tray bakes supplied by Anpang Patisserie in Fulkerra. I asked Patrick what business person he admires most.
Well, I suppose you always gravitate to the likes of the Michael O'Learys and these people. But I suppose locally, I would have to praise a guy called Larkin Verty up in Wild Atlantic Camp. He's a guy that took plenty of risks and didn't lose the chance, So, no, I would say Larkin is a guy locally that employs lots of people, takes lots of chances, and has lots of successful businesses.
And it's great to hear a business person promote somebody else in the locality. And you could have named anyone, but yeah, it's good to see that.
Yeah, look, he came up with the idea as well. It was going to be a weekend thing, and then on a seasonal basis. Patrick, as a project manager as well with Optum, this was a sideline that he developed, and it has actually been a very good success story. As you say, he does a very good job at promoting the area, and we did speak about maybe the need to promote the likes of Irish Forest Park a bit more, but it's very much in the centre of so many things that are in that area. And as he said himself, it is a bit of a jewel in the crown and Donegal tourism.
Absolutely, yeah. And when you open a coffee venue like that, I mean, on the one hand, it seems to be a really easy and simple thing to do, but people have become so, discriminating now about their coffee, and people have developed taste, and people know what good coffee tastes like. And if you're not providing good coffee, you're not going to stay in business for very long.
Yeah, very much. Well, I'm sure the footfall around his business will be a very good vote of confidence.
Absolutely.
The one thing he did say is it's weather dependent at times, and we were joking the fact that the most used app on his phone is the weather app. So very much dependent, or largely dependent on weather. But they've managed to keep it going over weekends, and obviously with the start of the tourist season in earnest this weekend, that's why I decided to go in and talk to Patrick.
Well, given the numbers that were around that area over the past couple of days, hopefully they've been utterly run off their feet this past weekend. Good to see and good to hear there from Patrick. The full interviews, of course, as ever, on the podcast. Kieran, how can people hear it?
Yeah, they are available to download now at highlandradio.com, Donal, or wherever they get their podcasts.
And the show will be broadcast at the weekend?
On Sunday evening, usual time after the 6 o'clock news.
Kieran Donal, presenter of Business Matters. Just to repeat the two interviewees there that will appear on the podcast, Stevie Toy, the photographer and graphic designer, and Patrick Stewart, the owner of Ard's Coffee Tree in Ard's Forest Park. Both available on the podcast. It's on the website, highlandradio.com, and it will also be broadcast on air after the 6 o'clock news on Sunday. Kieran, thank you very much indeed.
Good morning, Donal. Thank you.
Business Matters, in association with the ATU Donegal Faculty of Business. Are you a senior manager in the private sector looking to reinforce your leadership skills? ATU are offering a Level 9 Executive MBS in Leadership and Innovation based around action learning, starting late April. Take the next step in your career and contact the Exec Ed Coordinator on 9186206 today, or email donald.hannigan@atu.ie.
Cajimmer Tash Colin Ferreter and Shaw. Bigilan ihe Kedinja and Shaw Highland Sharkadia Art la Kyol Bio Ruja Buja le Jermad Macanolu August Amarus. Sharkadia Art ihe Kenya Bigilan.
Attention all pet lovers and owners. Gary's Pet World Letterkenny is open 7 days per week, offering the very best value on all pet foods, accessories, grooming and care products. Call in and let our staff help you spoil your pet today. You will be amazed by the range of product for all pets, with exceptional value on all leading brands. Alternatively, you can browse and buy online at petworld.ie, and we will deliver to your home.
Being a Garda will change your life. A few years ago, I attended a sudden death incident and had to work with the victim's wife and child. It was traumatic for the family, but you just absorb the trauma yourself. You stay strong so they don't have to. They had no family in Ireland, so when the boy's birthday came around, I organised for Gardaí, Coast Guard and the fire service to drive along the coast where he lived to show that we were all thinking of him in what was a really difficult time. I work in a close-knit community and we look after each other, uniform or not. His birthday matters to me as much as my own. Being a Garda is a really tough job, but it is definitely a job worth doing. You can apply now at publicjobs.ie.
Easter sale now on. Evolve Clothing Superstore. 2 floors of men's essential styles and fashions in casual wear, streetwear, formal wear and suiting. Plus over 200 styles of footwear. Easter sale now on. Evolve Clothing, Letterkenny Retail Park.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Lanzarote is back. Check out our new weekly flights to Lanzarote with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
And Mid-Éireann tell us that it is going to start getting very windy indeed out there. Just looking at the weather forecast, those winds will veer west to northwest in western parts into the afternoon. that wet and windy weather will sweep right across the region as the afternoon goes on. Some damaging gusts, possible winds increasing strong and gusty with gales in coastal areas for a time. There is rain. It'll clear eastwards for a period, but strong winds will persist into tonight. Top temperatures this afternoon of just 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. It's going to be a little bit windy. It is going to be a little bit wet as well, so be careful out there. Just a few comments before we go to our next caller with regards to traffic. Local Letterkenny bus driver, it took me an hour and 5 minutes to get from Golf Course Road to Arena 7 at one point. The traffic queue into town yesterday afternoon at around about 3:30, and remember there were no schools, was all the way out to Duns of Illistrin. Thankfully we know what side roads to escape on and get in quicker, but felt sorry for the double row of car owners in that dreadful queue. Well, as I said, I was driving from the Highland Radio Base here in Mountain Top down into Glencar in Letterkenny, and I must actually admit I did. And funny, it's another road that we've been discussing over the past couple of days. I just took a right and went up the Windy Hall Road and got down to Glencar that way, and it was a lot quicker. Caller says, I remember a few years ago a builder wanted to build accommodation opposite the new university in Letterkenny, and that was turned down. That development would have provided accommodation for a lot of students, so says a caller. With regards to how we revive the Irish language, some comments from Gaelscoil. On the Irish language, Colum says, use your cúpla focal, normalise it. If people hear it, they'll speak it. And Anya says, make every play school a Nínara. Now, a couple of our comments there, more to come a little bit later, but now let's go to a story we referenced on our newspaper review, and it's from a discussion at the Donegal Municipal District meeting, which took place this week. We're joined this morning on the line by Councillor Niamh Kennedy. Niamh, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal. Good morning, everyone.
Niamh, there's an issue in Killybegs. There is a road which can help alleviate traffic in Killybegs, but because it's called the Industrial Road, people are assuming it's leading into an industrial estate, and they're not using it.
Exactly. It is an issue that's gone on for quite a while, and it's something that everybody had noted, that why isn't people using this road and what's wrong. It's a perfectly good road. It completely takes you out of the town. It takes you straight into Fintra and leads you on to Kilcar, Carrick, Glencolmkill. And indeed, locals living in Kilcar, Carrick and Glencolmkill don't tend to use the road either, because they seem to feel that it's slightly longer than the old road, the old Fintra road. But it's really not. I think it's just a force of habit for locals that just use the old road. But the old road is no longer kind of fit for purpose, because there's no footpath on it. There's a lot more houses over the time and a lot more people out walking and cycling, etc. So the industrial road actually it's opened about 15 years now, and it has a number of factories on it, and it's a great road. And it literally takes you out to the Glenlee roundabout. But why? I mean, camper vans, everything is coming up at Cunningham's Junction, up the street, up the old road, taking you to kind of there's 5 roads off it on the junction, which leaves an awful mess. The fish shop is there, and I mean, I'd say Ronan in the fish shop could tell you some stories of what goes on there, as to see the traffic flow and how things happen. And if cars are parked, it causes a great backlog right up as far as the old carpet factory. So it creates quite a mayhem. And obviously with the Easter holidays and people coming to stay, we found that a lot of people were still using the old road. Yeah. The industrial road is not right.
Is it as straightforward as changing the name? If you were to change that name to, say, the Fintra-Kilcar link, would that help?
I think it would. For a start off, it's not even on the Google Maps. It's not on, it's not on sat navs. So people are not using it, because I genuinely think, because it says industrial road, people think that it's an industrial estate, and they're not going up that way. There's no point. That's just an industrial estate. It's a dead end. But it's actually not. It takes you out to the Glenlee roundabout and takes you clear and up a perfectly good road, which is it needs to be used. And as I say, we've got a load of people coming now in camper vans coming through for the holidays again, and they're wanting to get into the campsites at Fintra and Kilcar and in Carrick at the Sleeve League camping, and they're still coming up the old Fintra Road and causing a congestion and meeting traffic coming down, and then we've got fish lorries coming up the hill, and it's just mayhem. So we're just asking, I suppose, to get this. We've looked to get the road name changed now for the last probably 6 months. So I brought it up yesterday at our council meeting to see, can we bring it forward to plenary to put the correct name on the road. It really never was named. I mean, Industrial Road was just because it was an industrial estate up there. So we now need to name the road and get it on Google Maps and get it on the right way, so people will not be stressed out by traffic and have people complaining about,
Are you suggesting any particular names at the moment, or is that up for discussion?
Well, yeah, we did. We put it out there to the public back probably about 6 months ago, and yes, a simply lovely name is the Glenlee Pass, because it's passing the Glenlee Forest, and it's at the Glenlee roundabout, so it ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
We don't want to call it after anybody's names or anything like that, because you don't want to upset people or put people out. So safer and better that it's something that's in the locality, and it's always a name that has been there from the Glenlee Forest. So that's the name we would love to use, so the Glenlee Pass.
So hopefully then that'll come up before the next plenary meeting of council, and we'll get the backing of council. I mean, is it just as straightforward as getting it up for adoption now at a full council meeting, or does it have to go through more bureaucracy first?
There was a lot of bureaucracy at the beginning. In fact, at first we thought we could put it through our own municipal district meetings, and then we were told by corporate no, that we couldn't, that we had to go through to plenary. So it was agreed at our municipal district. Then letters had to be sent out then to the people who live on the road or businesses on the road to let them know that this is what the intent was, and if they had any issues or anything like that. So, well, nobody's any issues nowadays anyway, because everybody's got a postcode. So, there should be no issues with that. So everything looks like it's in place. So our roads engineers are now working on that to bring it in through corporate to get it through for the next plenary meeting. So hopefully we will have less confusion going forward for the summer, Donal.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing that happen. In the meantime, Councillor Niamh Kennedy, thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. That's Councillor Niamh Kennedy there. We have a few minutes left before we go, so let's clear up a few of your comments. A few left over actually from yesterday. We discussed the driving test. Caller says, once you do a test, you're qualified, yet you have to have someone on board with you. It's a very unfair system, especially for people in rural areas. Now, I don't think, no, you don't have to have somebody else on board with you. I think this may be a slight mistake a caller is making. We have, when we pass your test, you get rid of the L plates, you put up the N plate for 2 years, but you can drive on your own with the N plate. Once you've passed the test, you do drive on your own. You do have to put up the N plate to show that you've recently passed your test. My own daughter indeed passed her test just over a year ago, still has N plates on her car, but no, she drives to work herself every day. So no, you don't have to have somebody in the car with you if you have an N plate. I failed my first theory test, hope to do my second theory driving test in September. How does it work for people with disabilities? My understanding is that with regards to the theory test is exactly the same. And then when you do your test, if you have to drive an adapted car to suit your disability, you will do your test in the adapted car, and the tester will assess whether you are competent to drive. I have a potential issue myself, and I made inquiries about it, and I was told no, that issue does not come into play with regards to the test. It's to do with sight. I am monocular. I do not have vision in my left eye. And basically I made inquiries, and I was told no, it isn't as though you are monocular or binocular or whatever. The big question is, are you competent to drive? And if you're competent to drive, then you can drive. So it's fairly straightforward. It isn't as though if you have an adapted car because of a disability, you'll be tested in that car, and then you will be given hopefully your certificate of competency to drive. And that's it from the 9 till noon show for this Wednesday. As ever, John Breslin is up next around the Northwest. Before that, of course, we'll have the news headlines at midday with Donna Marie Doherty. Thanks, as always, to all our contributors. Thanks especially to you for listening. Thanks to Niamh and to Caroline for taking your calls. Caroline, indeed, for producing as well. From myself, Donal Kavanagh, have a very good day.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever sale. Up to 50% off